Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I thank you for watching here. You're getting through your week. You're almost there to Sunday. Hopefully it's going fast and going easy on you. We're getting through this off season. We're almost to July, almost to the 4th, and that's where you can definitely see inside training camp, on deck, en route, almost here. Hopefully you're getting hyped up for this Seattle Seahawks team, as I think they're en route to do something pretty good this year, and maybe even great. We shall see. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit of, a little bit of the sugar with the salt a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of the sweet and the sour, a little bit of both on that a little bit here. And talking about Christian mother effing Haynes. Christian Haynes, your Seattle Seahawks drafted Christian last year in the 3rd round. And he came to Seattle as a multi-year starter at UConn, a guy that was considered a pretty safe interior offensive line prospect, where maybe there'd be a little bit of some questions about that upside. But then in getting him, you're not having to take as much of the gamble for the low side, that he's at least got somewhat of a steady floor that you can rely upon walking in the building, and that's what he's going to at least give you something initially. That's part of drafting, is that you were hoping you're going to get that. But of course, something happened on the route. Took that left turn there, or didn't take the left turn at Albuquerque when we should have, and it didn't quite go particularly great for Christian. He was not able to be that ready-made starter from day one, but it wasn't all bad, and there is certainly a lot to build upon. There is the somewhat scheme change he's now going to here with Kubiak from where you were with Grubb, less maybe gap, a little bit more zone. That's going to lean a little bit more into his strengths, but there was the, both good moments and bad moments from last year. You do get this, I think, from rookies in general terms anyway. Certainly offensive line, which is, unless you're just a freak show there from a length power standpoint, you got to kind of learn to become a technician. And in Christian Haynes' case, I think one of the other things, which is understandable for a young player to have to develop of their game, is that when you come out of college, you are going to need to go into that NFL weight room in that program, and you're going to need to hit it hard. You're going to need to get stronger. And these guys that have been in the league for 3 or 4 years, they've been through every offseason in that weight program, getting bit by bit by bit stronger and stronger and stronger. And that seemed to be the real place when you tap into Haynes. He can get a little bit cleaner technically, sure, but then also that the play strength needed to just be a little bit more improved. And this is something that Mike McDonald himself spoke to in interviews when he was asked about it. So it is a big part of the game that does have to come forward for him, and that's going to be really one of the main keys with him as we go forward into the season, is to see if that power and that strength can come forward a little bit more. There's just some times with him, especially as a run blocker, where he makes contact with that defensive tackle, and that defensive tackle doesn't go anywhere. And in fact, he sometimes can see himself get backed up a little bit in those moments last year, and that's where you just want to see that come forward. He's never going to be a pure mauler, but he doesn't really have to be. He is a purified right guard. This is not a guy, in my opinion, who can play left guard. You want him over on the right side. That's where you want him stuck. You want him getting, more often than not, kind of the double team blocks there with the center, which the right guards tend to get more than the left guards, because you're going to run strong side formation. You're going to play to the right-handed side of the offensive formation by and large, not all the time, but by and large. So some of this does get mitigated a little bit with some of the double teams he can get in there on that. But these are the places he's got to kind of come forward on if he's going to tap into the talent that we thought we were getting in the 3rd round. And he is a very elemental part of this offensive line, in my opinion. In Anthony Bradford, you've got the freakish athletic size and movement for that size that just doesn't tend to come together like that, but it was so raw. Hard to know if that's really going to finally come together. The reports with him are that he's worked his butt off this offseason. He's in the best shape of his life. We always hear that this time of year with about half of your roster. And then you've got Sa'ato Amea, who came in last year and was able to give you some functional play at times, especially as a run blocker, but who was a little bit of a nightmare when it came to pass protection. It was definitely hot and cold with him on one side of the ball to the other with that. So there is a real opportunity for Haynes to step up and take this job and make it his, and get himself solidified there, and everything else in the line just shakes right out so well, because now you don't have to think about bumping him into center. You got him there at right guard. You keep your centers where you're at. You got Zabel there at left guard, and things maybe start to settle down just a little bit here with this offensive line, and the ship gets a little bit more steadied. Not as much of a lilt. That's what I think they call that thing. Not as much of a lilt. As far as PFF scores go, I think this does capture pretty precisely where the season was at for him. PFF is not the end-all be-all. This is why we run tape here when we talk about the scores, to pair it up with the scores to kind of show how there is some cognitive tissue between the two things. So I'm not using it as that, but this does definitely capture a bit of a snapshot here of not only Haynes' struggle in his rookie year, but in general, the right guard struggle overall last year and how hard it was for the Seahawks to get just pliable, functional play from the right guard position. Because when you look at what you're looking at right now, you're looking at what we would call the bottom of the barrel. You are scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as the PF grades go. And so it doesn't go any lower than Doug Kramer, City Sal, Andrus Pete. It does not go any lower than that grade. This is the bottom. This is even with sample size included. So this is with players who may have only played a handful of snaps. This is even not just those that played a significant portion. So you go, well, look, he was the worst of the guys who played a lot of snaps. No. You can't even say that. There are the sample size snaps included within this. So you see at the bottom, tied for 77, though I guess he's not tied there. Technically, he'd be 77. The bottom would be like 81 or whatever, 82. But you got Sa'atoa there at 37.9. That grade is driven almost solely on the back of his issues in pass protection. It was rough. It was really rough. Then you've got going up a little bit higher, up to 72. You're going to notice Anthony Bradford in there, the aforementioned one, at 48.3. And then just above him at 71. So 71th ranked guard out of 83 ranked guards by PFF last year. Your 71st ranked guard was Christian Haynes. So a tough opening rookie year there for Christian. Not well graded, not well ranked on that. But again, not all bad. We're going to be talking about the bad today a little bit. Definitely that's going to be a little bit of the part that we got to cover with this, because it was a disappointing opening year for him. For a guy that was supposed to be ready-made and good to go coming off the bus, he was not good to go coming off the bus. I think the one good side about that is that if you look at his grades here with the overall 48.5, he had a 49.8 run blocking grade and a 51.9 pass blocking grade. Those are neither good grades, but unlike Sa'atoa Lumea, it's not some divergence where you have one thing that he's doing really good and another thing where it's just kind of putrid. I think that this gives me a lot more confidence that it can come forward, being that both parts of his game are in reasonably kind of about the same place and how he started out as a rookie. And there's really a lot of room for improvement here, no doubt about that. But it was a rough rookie year for him. There's just no two ways about it. You can also see struggled to just get on the football field. He's got 167 offensive snaps, 54 as a run blocker, 113 as a pass protector. So not on the field very much at all last year. We're not going to have even we got a decent amount of cut-ups to go through with you guys here today, but not as much as some of the other players we've looked at here, because he just didn't have the starts, just didn't get out on the field, just wasn't able to play, was not ready. So what it really does break down to. Only gave up one sack in the 113 pass blocking snaps. I think if you lean to the strength of his game a little bit as it stands right now, it's definitely, I think, going to be in pass protection, where he is at his best. If you guys remember in college, I don't think he might have given up like one sack in his final 2 years or something like that at UConn. Some kind of cool stat like that he had coming out the back end of that. So he is okay as a pass protector on that side. But let's look at him on the film here and see what he's going to bring to play on that side of it. And let's start out with the good. This is a silver linings episode, so let's start out with some of the good stuff, not the bad stuff on this, and see how he's doing here in pass protection here and some of his smattering of snaps that he got. You're going to be looking at the right guard position here on the team on these cut-ups. 64 is the guy that you want to lock into here. Now, he's got a little bit of a technique he can use at times in pass protection. He is a master tripper, I would say. He does it subtly. He does it to where it's going to be probably just about impossible to ever be called, because it's just not super overt and you're right in the dirty trenches there where it's hard for those officials to see every little thing that's going on. But if you watch him here, he's picking up a stunt nice. There's a little bit of good and bad in the stunt pickup stuff that they're doing. But he picks up the stunt with his leg. So watch his leg here. A right leg comes out. There you go. You can't get your hands to him, get your leg to him, I guess, huh? He can be a little bit of a tripper in pass pro, but like I said, it works. So, who am I to knock him for it, if you make it work. The stunts and the twists and loops were definitely something teams tried to attack him with. And sometimes he played really good. Sometimes, he'd have a little bit of a struggle with it. Just to show you guys here some of his tripping. He's a little bit of a tripper here. You got him left-hand side of your screen there, 64. A little bit of subtlety here. Again, I don't think this will ever be called. Just his little technique here. So watch that, let that right leg lock up right there, and then trips his guy over. And hey, he's getting two hands on one here because he's neutralizing Warner while he's tripping the guy. I mean, the guy can definitely chew gum and rub his hand on his head. Remember that old exercise they make you do is I'll walk and chew gum and rub your hand on your head or whatever at the same time. He can definitely do that. But look at that right leg there. Look at him just keep it a little stiff there. A little stiff. Very subtle stuff there from Christian. This guy's played a lot of college football. He's got little tricks in his bag that he can bring out every once in a while. Ooh, what do officials call him that? It took me freaking 4 times rerunning the tape just to catch it. So a little bit of tripper, but hey, also not bad in pass pro here. He's picking up Warner, helping out on the double team on Warner with Connor Williams, keeping a ready-made hand there in pass pro on the defensive end, and then keeping a leg ready for him too. Good all the way around. Because there's no way that Stone Forsythe's reaching that reach block. No way in hell. That is not his game. Back to the New England game here. Again, you're going to look at 64, your right guard. And again, this is going to be another pass pro rep here. Another good rep. Gets right in front of his guy. Sinks down with a nice little anchor here. Doesn't get moved back or put on skates. You see there's a little bit of a boom, boom there, right? Boom, boom. But he gets that down, and you can see, look at the distance you've got there where Gino's got a clean pocket to throw from. He's got a nice passing lane to get this ball to Jackson. Yes, the pressure starts to bear in. It's more of Connor Williams messing up on the stunt. See Connor there, 57, does not pick up the stunt until it's way too late. And in fact, Haynes kind of does a good job of, he's not even meaning to get in front of him. It's just where the bull rush is taking him, of getting in front of him there. But good job for a guy that struggled with power at times last year to root down here. I will say as well, sometimes the hands last year, they're getting a little wide. We're getting a little too much like a crab here. You are not a crab. You are a human being. You walk on 2 feet. You do not eat fish life from the bottom of the ocean floor. You are not a crab. So a little wide. Don't like that. Needs to come inside with the hands. Kind of catching him here. You don't love that. That's part of that clean the technique thing. A little more consistent. There's a little bit of the hugging on his tape. This is just kind of a quick pass play. Again, I don't have a lot of reps to be able to show you with him because there's reps where you can't take a lot from him. He might be double teaming or just kind of standing there and nothing's happening. So some of these are going to be just reps. I'm really trying to show you what I can from him because it just doesn't have a lot there. Just kind of like this rep because he did end up getting the guy on the ground. And it's not really, I think he's doing anything great. Just the guy trips. Another trip here where this one doesn't mean to happen. It just does. A lot of bodies down there, a lot of big bodies down there. Does Stone Forsythe mean to do this? I don't think so. I don't think so on that one. The Giants game here, he actually played pretty decently in the Giants game. I think this was his best graded game of the year. Neutralizes the pass rush here to the point that he gets the defensive tackle to try to drop back in coverage at the end of the snap. So 64. Again, good power here. As you can see when the bull rush gets into him, he might get a step or two, but you're not going to keep walking him back on the bull rush. Even though there's a lot of room there for him to grow as far as power goes, you can feel he's got a good base there to him. Good natural width and size. If you're kind of measuring up like a Connor Williams versus him, you can see he's a lot wider. Just feels a little bit bulkier in there. Be able to deal with that stuff. That's what you want from a right guard. But it's a good rep here. Handles the power really well. A lot of guys get on skates with that type of thing. And he can kind of route the rusher into another block. You've seen him do that a little bit already on some of these. He can kind of sense it. Smart player in that way. Again, here in the Giants game, again on that right side of your screen. Lock in on over there. Pulls back across the formation post-snap. Complete it to Barner. I don't know if you'll be doing as much of this in Kubiak's scheme. It's kind of a Grubb special, but difficult block. Your right guard that's got to pull back out to the far outside edge of the formation there to pick up the edge. Not easy at all. Gets right in there, though. Good block. Good completion. He can move a little bit in space. He's not Frankenstein out there. Here we go again. I know this is going to be a sack on this play, but it's not Christian Haynes' fault. Just the whole offensive line basically kind of collapses in here a little bit outside of him. He does a good job of keeping his guy in front of him. Hands, a lot better place. So remember I showed you the hug? Look at the hands here. See how the hands go a little tighter in? It's getting close to the shoulder, but it's not that hug technique. He's more now driving the hand into the chest a little bit more here. That's a little bit more of what we want to see. Love to get a little tighter, but that's okay. We're on our way. And it's a good rep. Really absorbs the power well. Hopefully you're kind of feeling that on some of these reps. As a pass rusher with the power stuff, I think the power stuff is more probably intricately in his game as a run blocker than it is as a pass protector. I think the power shows up a lot better as a pass protector, especially against that bull rush, which is, again, what this guy's going to try here, completed ball down the field. But another one where they're obviously the word was out on the street about Haynes and the power stuff. It's part of why you're seeing these defensive tackles really just using that, not trying to go to like the rip, the swims, trying to give him a lot of shake off the snap. You're seeing they're just coming at him. That's because those scouting reports say that you just want to hammer this guy. But he does a good job, again, of absorbing what becomes kind of a long arm bull rush at the end even there. And starts out as a pure bull rush, becomes a long arm, but doesn't get walked back. See how he doesn't give up much space? Hands in the right space. So catches a little wide at first, does correct it. So again, grab technique coming in a little bit too much here. Hands got to be to the chest. Don't catch it. But he does slide them basically inside there. So he does eventually get them back inside in the right place to kind of correct the rep. Be able to reset your hands a little bit. You need to do that as an offensive lineman. There's going to be that hand fighting in there, and you got to be able to reset it. You can kind of get away with an initial hold like this. If you can get your hands back inside like that, they're not going to call it. If he just holds on like this all the way through the rep, like just keeps those hands on the outside of that, it's going to be problematic, and he's going to get a penalty. But understands how to get his hands in there quick because he resets them nicely. It's a good rep here overall. A little wide initially, but corrects it, fixes it. And again, that base, that good strong base is at play here. It's one of the times where he picked up the stunt and looped really good. So you get a stunt here going back across each other. And he does a nice job here with recognizing it, reading it, and then picking it up really seamlessly. Very fluid here. Lions run this okay. They do a good job of stunting. I think part of what throws this off is their defender ends up falling on his face mid-rep here and kind of messes the play up. Gino able to break the pocket and then goes out there and scrambles. But Haynes doing a good job. First picks up the first guy, picks up the second guy, keeps himself in front of him. Gives Gino an angle to be able to break the pocket here. Not a bad rep there. Here against Detroit again. They're going to be getting upfield, attacking his inside shoulder here. Got to feel it. Got to feel it. Stunt coming again. And he dirts him up. It's a nice little pancake here. Feels it. Guy slips a little bit, but he's also on it with the timing. So I think another part, a lot of this shows a little bit about the silver linings. The power issues, not as much there when you talk about pass protection. Picking up the stunt and loopers, dealing with games up front. This is part of that ready-made status coming out of UConn, was he is a really good pass protector, and that this is stuff that should come along really nicely this upcoming year with him. I don't think you're going to confuse him a lot with the blitzes and whatnot. Whereas a guy like Anthony Bradford, for instance, he can get his head spun around by stunts and loops and blitzes a lot. It's part of the rawness of his game. Again, we got him right here on the left side of your screen. back across the formation pass pro. There's nobody there as far as no one's home. The edges end up dropping back in space here. So he pulls back out. He's looking for an edge to block. The edge pulls 51 there, pulls back out. So he goes, okay, no one's there. I got to pick up somebody here. And then picks up, bam, right there. And Gino's trying to fit this ball in a real tight window. Good job of realizing midstream here, though. I got to come back around. He's set up, as they're looking at the film, he's set up to where he's being told, get out to 51 here. That's your responsibility. But 51's drop into the flat, so pick up the defensive tackle instead. Good thinking on his feet situation here, like this. He can be a little bit of a heady player. He's got some savviness to him. Again, that bull rush, like I said, people were really trying to lean on using this against him last year. This is where we come back to the strength being the thing that he's got to improve, because this is why teams are attacking it. They don't think you got it. So get it, because you can build strength. You can't build quickness, speed, really. You can only do so much on that. You either naturally kind of have that or don't. But when it comes to the power and the size, or not size, but the power, you can definitely kind of improve upon that. Bull rush here. 2 steps. He's kind of a 2-step bull rush guy. You might get him on 2 steps, but he's going to lock it down by the 2nd step for the most part. And that's what he does here. 1, 2, and then lock in right there. Don't give up any more ground. There's pressure on this play, but the pressure is caused by Forsythe, who could not block Bosa in this game for his life. He had a lot. Forsythe's probably still having nightmares about this game with Bosa. But a pretty good rep here from Haynes, in my opinion. No one's going to stonewall bull rushes from a defensive tackle. Let's get that clear. No one's going to bring a defensive tackle to a standstill at the line of scrimmage on a bull rush. You're always going to be given a little bit of ground up, but can you slow that ground that you're giving up? Can you come down and even anchor in at given points and eventually get it to a standstill? You bet he can. You bet he can. Another good stunt pickup here I want to show you. I'm going to have to show you a few tough ones as well. Here he's uncovered at the line of scrimmage. We've got a wide 9 kind of 4-man front here from the Lions. Trying to create some confusion here. Hutchinson spins inside. Gets some help here from Connor Williams, but he's ready for Hutch. He's ready the whole way for Hutch here. Doesn't get surprised by it in the least. Nice help there by Connor, too. But I think Haynes has this rep all the way, even if Connor doesn't help him out, in my opinion. Run blocking reps, we didn't have a lot of them. As I showed you, a lot of what he did was pass blocking, and that had to do with a big part being that Grubb, of course, just didn't want to do a lot of running the ball last year. And so when he was out there, that was definitely the case. You had the Giants game, you're playing from behind in a couple of these. So in Detroit game. So it just kind of ended up making the run game go and not be a part of things. Doesn't mean that they were trying to not run the ball when he was in there. Just it was kind of the nature of what was going on when he was out there. And the Patriots game, he would flip in and out a little bit throughout the year early on. They were really trying to get him to start. And so they would flip in and out Bradford. They'd start Bradford. Then they'd bring Haynes in off the bench. But then Bradford would be back in there by the end of the game. And Seattle was really trying, I think, to try to just slowly put his toes into the pool, then slide him into the pool, then teach him, and like, come on, swim. Come on. We don't want to run with Bradford here. Let's go. We want you to be the guy here on this. But unfortunately, just couldn't get it done there on that. Now I'm here, tough block, gets a nice pancake. This is what we call a reach block. So he's aligned here. He's got to get to the block here. That's a 1.5 yard space he's got to cover for a running play that's going outside the left side. So the running play is going to where the defensive tackle is at. I think the degree of difficulty on this kind of block probably can't be undersold, much less the fact that you actually go and get a pancake. Now, Connor does help him on the pancake, but Connor also trips and blows the block at first. He recovers and gets back up and knocks the guy off. It helps to knock the guy off his feet. But a good job of getting over to that block, because the way this block's supposed to work is Connor's supposed to come off the line and hold him up until Haynes can get to him. Then Connor releases out, goes down to the second level, and Haynes has the block controlled. But Connor doesn't get that. It's the key point of this block is to kind of hold this up at first to give your right guard. He's got to travel two yards laterally to get over to the block. So you got to hold the block up for him to get there. Look at him. He's on his knees. He completely blows it. But Haynes still gets over to the block, partly because the defensive tackle slants to his left. He sort of sets himself up to get blocked here by the route he takes, slanting to that A-gap side there. But a good job by Haynes of being able to clean up his teammate's mistake. You end up with a pancake. And good job by Connor here of recovering and getting up off his feet and still helping to lay the guy out on the ground. Another one here right at the point of attack. I think this is where you feel a little bit less of the power coming in with Haynes. This is where the power struggles to me more show up. Being that you're seeing him sometimes retreat more than you're seeing him push forward. I'm not looking for you to drive the guy down the field, but I don't want you to give up space into the backfield either. It's not a completely awful block, but it's not a good block either here. And again, the lack of power is something that does show up on this one for me. I think that this is where you can see, whatever reason, the run game to the pass protection aspect, it's just kind of a little bit of a difference between the two, where the power shows versus where the other one is at. Falcon game, kind of in and out of the lineup here a little bit in the game, but this was probably his best run blocking snap of the year, where the play is going to his side. He's going to get the linebacker sealed up, and Kenneth Walker is going to go do the rest. DK Metcalf with the one-handed block out on A.J. Terrell. Blitzing linebacker, picks him up. Let's unpack what he's doing here. Picks up the linebacker first, heads up. But Haynes is a guy that understands about how to kind of pin block, shield block a little bit. So he knows Walker's going to go outside of his right shoulder. Now, the defender again helps him a little bit here by leaning to that right, which then allows him to just pin him right there. So you see, by the time you get Walker running past Haynes, I love it when offensive linemen can do this, where they're able to route their body to where it's, you have Walker, Haynes, and then you have defender. The defender has no pathway to get to Walker because Haynes' big body is essentially blocking him out of the play. It doesn't start this way, though. It starts out, he's heads up. But you end up where you have him pinned, and you see that on the right side. Jarrell as well does a great job of this. Pin that up with both sides to give your running back that true hole. And then look what happens when you actually give Kenneth Walker a hole and don't have him getting blasted to the backfield by penetration. My goodness, what a difference that can make, huh? Wonderful block there by our guy Haynes. And a smart block, and the kind of blocks that are going to work in this system. New system with zone isn't about just necessarily driving guys off the line. It's a lot of times about just shielding them away from the play. Holding the block, not hold, but holding and keeping the block for just enough time for your super fast back to get past you. And if the defender takes the wrong angle, like this, you got him. Like that linebacker does right there, taking that inside shoulder of Haynes. Now you're toast. Now we got you. Just like what you're going to see in this new scheme. It's about timing. It's about catching the defense off guard, catching them leaning in the wrong direction. Then just one more with Metcalf down the field. One arm on the defender. Defender completely giving up. Metcalf just on basically a Sunday stroll here. Terrell had totally given up at this point. Like, I'm just not going to, I don't think I'm going to go ahead and defend the run today. I'm going to take that off. You guys pay me to cover. Didn't do that good a job on Metcalf in that respect. You know what I'm saying? So we've got some good stun pickups here from him on tape, like this with the Falcons game. Right guard there, 64, you're going to be looking at here. I got some good reps I can show you, like this. Picks one up, picks the next up. Clean, nice. Other problems are happening in this pocket, but it has nothing to do with Christian Haynes. This is, to me, a pretty pristine rep. Very clean. Help out on the first guy, get to the second guy fast. And this is a part of his game that's going to be very, very good as we go into the future. There's some snaps I'm going to show you that are a little dicey with him that you go, ooh, got to clean that up. But there's so many good snaps and reps in here too as well with him in the stunts and the loops that really encourage me for the future here with him. Not an easy one here either. Just effortlessly picks it up, allows Gino to kind of roll out the pocket and go scramble for a little bit. But 15 here starts really wide. Yeah, it's Judon. Judon starts really wide there. Comes back inside. Haynes has got him the whole way. Effortless pickup here on the stunt. And sets up as well with this first block. Look at how he helps to set up Jarrell. Look at that. Boom. That's against Grady Jarrett there. Just wham. Hits Jarrett and sets Jarrett right into Jarrell. See how he sets that block up for Jarrell? And Jarrett, you want to go around the outside from Jarrell's standpoint, then go ahead. I'll route you right around through the back of the pocket. I'm happy to do so. But it's all started, bang, by that hit there by Haynes. Good little bit of work with him. Now, there are some dicey stunt pickups too, though. The guy didn't get the bad grade last year from PFF, but earning it. Here we got him on the right side. Gonna have a little bit of a struggle on this one. I think that really what ends up making his rep not look as bad as it is on this one is the fact that Forsythe gets beat so badly and so quickly and instantaneously off the edge. Like Forsythe doesn't block almost anybody on this. He just gets completely confused. Hutchinson hits him with a nasty spin. Charbonnet's there to help him a little bit. But even if, let's just take the guy that blitzes out of the way here. Hutchinson probably gets the pressure if the other guy doesn't. He's right there to go take this. So, not the best of reps there. Another one here. Just a little late to recognize. I want to show the good stunt pickups first because I don't think that this is much of the problematic side of his game. This is just a rookie just kind of learning the ropes a little bit. Just a little late on this one. We've seen him very quick and fast on these. This one just completely kind of gives up the pressure there in the back of the end zone. Gino's just got to kind of throw it away a little bit. So there's some dicey ones too, but there's some good ones as well. It's a mixed bag. It is a mixed bag. Another one here on bad pass pro rep. Less about now trying to hit him with power here, using a little bit more hands. He gets a swipe move that just gets him beat. Love how the hand goes in here, so he's not crabbing. Does try to just kind of shock him with the one hand, but he then leaves his other hand out of it. Get that other hand in there too, Bring that one with you. Defender attacks half a body there, so attacking half a man to the outside shoulder, and you're leaving that left hand out. You're kind of dealing like a guy that's an amputee at that point. Tough little rep there. Run blocking, strength, and power. Does it show up? Can we see it in other places? Yeah, you can see it right here. 64 again, right guard. Notice again the lack of movement. Not exactly getting any push going forward. Just getting pushed backwards, if anything. If anything, losing ground, and then his man makes the tackle. So just got to get a little bit stronger here at the point of attack. Not an easy block. You'd love to have your double team here, but you want to pull out your center in space every once in a while. And if you notice here, you've got your two blocks with Cross and Connor Williams. They get their blocks laid here. If Haynes can find a way to get his guy pinned, this play might have a little bit of potential to it. I know the Bates, the safety's coming up. He might make that tackle there at that point, but see where you start, see where he starts as far as his stance, see where he ends on the end of the rep. And that's basically having given about a half yard backwards. Part's got to come forward. One place that's going to be a big spot as well will be blocking on the move. Place it's going to be elemental to this scheme. And a little bit like the stunt stuff. It's a bit of a mixed bag with him last year. Show you some good reps. I can show you some reps where he's got some ways to go on what he's doing. Initially, good block here at the line of scrimmage, helping out at the double team. Then getting down to Kaiser White and is able to get him off his feet. Get a nice little run play out of this. This is what happens when you get the two blocks laid. Very hard to do. A lot of times you get the first block laid, but you're not going to get to the second one. takes advantage of the fact Budda Baker gets kind of tripped up, and so he's able to sort of use the man. Like I said, he's a master of tripping you. So if he sees a guy laying on the ground, he'll just throw you over the guy. It may be his super skill, quite honestly. It may just be. See him just bend him over there, and then Walker, like I said, man, look what happens to Walker when you actually give him some good blocks. When you actually give him a legitimate hole to work with. He's gonna make the most of that. Blocking on the move is going to be what this scheme's going to ask him to do, though. You want guys that are mobile. You want guys that can get to the second level, that they can hit the combo blocks, peel down, pull out in front, hit the reach blocks. Much like that last rep, this one on the other side of it. Gets the first block helped out at double team point of attack. Linebacker Anzoli gets off the second block pretty easily. Like the stunts. Like I show you the good reps that are right there and the ones where it's almost there. Almost there, but I expect it to come along. I see the signs of life. The signs of life are there in what he is showing you. And that just does give me encouragement that this stuff will grow and improve. Is he ever going to be a dominant player in this league? Is he ever going to be top end? Maybe not. But that solid floor is the thing that I still continue to think about. Here he's got to get down to the linebacker. Linebackers helped him out a little bit by creeping down into the A gap, so making the block a little bit easier for him. Still not an easy block. And the guy does almost make the tackle, but a fairly reasonable job on his part, and he does end up getting, I guess, technically a pancake on this play. It's more of kind of the linebacker laying out of the line to kind of make the tackle than a pure pancake, but we'll give him a pancake. I want to give the rookie a little bit of some good vibes feelings on this one. Got the Niner game. The first Niner game. It's going to be right over here on the right-hand side. Let's get another one where he's going to be blocking on the move, trying to get down to Mr. Warner. Never an easy task. Probably one of the toughest linebackers to get down onto the second level with in the league. I mean, that's one of the skills with Warner is that he is slippery. You can see here struggles to quite get out on top of him there. I think if you can look at this one, it's really that, okay, good there. You've got him controlled. Now just get down to the second level here. But you can see he kind of gets held up there a little bit for a little long. Get down to him. Get down to him. Don't wait for him, which is lets him get it. That's what lets him get free there. So here, you got it laid. Get off of him now. Get up onto that block. But he kind of just gets a little lazy with it and hangs out there and hopes that Warner's just going to kind of come to him. And Warner's past him. Got to be a little more active in getting out into that block. Here he's going to pull out into space and again try to get out to Warner on, I think this is a tunnel screen they're running here. So again, this is a hard block. You miss this block, it's a lot of right guards in this league aren't going to be able to land this block. But you can see just doesn't quite get close to doing it. I don't think he's doing anything bad here. It's just, he just can't beat Warner to that spot. So this is the part of the game I will be watching for in training camp, preseason, when we see him play. How is he doing on those blocks where he's got to get on the move and get out in space? Because you can't scheme around it in the system. You do have to be able to move. You do have to get to those blocks, the second level, to make this thing go. And I think he does. I think it is there. He wasn't the greatest athlete of all time coming out as a guard at college, but he wasn't putrid or bad either on the other side of it. Again, he's going to have to get down to the second level, 64. Again, him and Warner having a little tete-a-tete. A little bit of a better job of kind of getting him squared up here. Warner's still able to get out around with him, but he does a much better job than the rest of his teammates do on this. Poor Walker. What is this man supposed to do? Like, you got the first guy on the front side, or Barner does his best, but the crackback block does nothing. You have the backside guy, JSN blows his block completely. So DeMondre Lenore's coming up the backside. You've got Campbell there, the linebacker. He's just sitting there completely untouched because Cross takes a half hour to finally get out onto him. I mean, 3 guys blow their block on this play. What's Walker supposed to freaking do? I can't think of a better play that just more symbolizes our ineptitude in the run game than one like this. And of course, if you notice here with the inherently why these guys are all doing this and they're all on it this much, if you can kind of feel this, I know this has nothing to do with Haynes. The reason that they're all on this is because they know exactly what the F is coming. There is no question in the Niners' heart as to whether this is a pass or a run. Look at how they're all reacting post-snap. They know right where this thing is freaking going. I mean, does Lenore look like he's worried in the least bit with covering up JSN? That's his coverage responsibility. He just blasts right past him. God, this scheme was horrible last year. Just awful. One last reps here I'm going to show with you. Again, got to get down to linebacker if you're going to be Christian Haynes here. So initial block, then peel down to the linebacker. It's a tough block, high degree of difficulty. Just can't quite get it laid there. Feet get a little bit stuck underneath him here. Can't quite get the feet moving. Not his fault why the run play didn't go. It's definitely Grady Jarrett makes a nice play here. You could maybe make the argument he's got to do a little bit more to help seal up Garrett. So when you're laying this initial block, you're supposed to try to push this guy into the center of your center's chest. Connor does a good job of getting his feet lateral to get there, but it's not really Haynes getting that push to the right place. It's a real subtle thing. Little extra push. Grady doesn't get quite as far laterally to get to the play. But because you kind of soft push it because you're just trying to think about that linebacker block that you want to get to, he's able to get enough progression down the line of scrimmage there to be in place to make the tackle. So there's kind of two things bad on this one and one here from Christian. Get the block a little bit more laid there at the point of attack, and then go find the linebacker. Hard block, don't get me wrong. These are tremendously, tremendously hard blocks to pull off. So, there are going to be a lot of guards in the league that don't kind of get that and make that roll. But you see really where things got to go with him. Number one, point of attack. I need you to get stronger. I need you to be able to push some guys off the line of scrimmage at times. I need you to not be walked backwards. At least get a stalemate. Don't lose ground into the backfield at times in the run blocking game. Get a little more consistent in the stunt and the blocking out in space. And these are two things I think he's got in his bag to do. I think that these are not going to be limitations in his game. I think I'm more worried about whether or not he's going to come forward as a run blocker and be able to really, get some real push there at the line of scrimmage at times, or whether or not that's going to be a bit of his game that just always will be a little bit of a deficiency, in which case he may eventually need to go to more of like a spread system, air raid offense that's going to be more pass happy and doesn't ask him to do as much blocking maybe on the move. I don't think that that's going to be required. I do still have some real good high hopes for Haynes to turn himself into a very solid player in this league when it's all said and done. I think when you draft him last year, and I looked at a lot of tape of his, I think it was true and real for the reason that you took him in the third round, that this wasn't one where you mistaked and missed the boat on this guy, but that you saw it there on the tape and that it's true and it's real. And it's one that there are a lot of teams in the league that would have looked at him and said, this is a third round talent to go grab. I don't think he gets out of the third round if the Seahawks don't take him, for instance. So I think roads lead to feeling encouraged by him more than anything else, even though last year was pretty disappointing, especially for what was supposed to be a ready-made guy. I think overall, though, you still do feel those silver linings within this and know that there is stuff there to build upon from his rookie year in the smattering of play that he did have. And it's all the way around, and that you can find some good things both in pass protection and as a run blocker. I think he's a very heady player. I think he's got some savviness he brings to the position as well that's absolutely missing in full from one Mr. Anthony Bradford. And I'd love to see that come forward in Bradford's game too, but maybe it's something that you inherently have or you don't in the case of a guy like Haynes and some of that stuff that he's able to bring to play. Hopefully he can build upon it. We need this guy to solidify himself in that right guard spot, or Bradford or LeMay, one of the three of them. It is going to be the big key this season. You come into this year and you're looking at that right guard position and it's stacking up like I showed you earlier on in this stream when I showed you the full grades for guards right here. These are all the guards, all the way. This is the bottom of the barrel guards. And when you're looking at the bottom 70 essentially out of, and it's not even 80 ranked guards. A lot of these guys are tied for the same spot. So you have to think of this like when I'm looking at Saatolome at the 77th ranked guard in this league, that's actually more like he's the 153rd ranked guard in the league. So when you're looking up a little bit higher on the list, just barely higher, and you see Bradford and you see Haynes there, those are guys that like ranked 136 out of 153. Those are the kind of numbers you want to consider on that a little bit. So I don't point at this to say that our guard position's in a bad shape. I point to it to say that imagine if it's not in this shape as it was last year, this year. Imagine if it can go from being league worst by a mile to getting to kind of a middle of the road state, and then what that can do for the overall offensive line and then for the team with it. Because they say, this is the analytic people talking on this, those same folks that say you can't draft a running back high, that the running game is really driven by other aspects and other matters, and specifically by the offensive line, and specifically within that, not having the weak link on the offensive line. You think it's about the strength and power of your offensive line. So you think of it like, hey, our offensive line will be driven by its star power. If I've got a Trent Williams, he will raise all boats with him because he's just so good. He will help out naturally the performative level of the rest of the line because of that. But instead, what they tell you is they say, no, it's actually the weak links. If you have a weak link on a line, it can sink a good line. You can have good, weak link, good, and that can potentially even still sink it. You're as good as your weakest link. And so if you can have a right guard position that's not at the bottom of the league, that's not performing all the way around bad from how they run block to how they pass protect, what that then does to raise this lineup, in my opinion, is very, very mightily important, especially for a team that we're hoping can take the next step this year in its play, that can start to really tap in to the potential that we think is here on this football team. And we saw last year, and we've seen so often over the past 10 years, that the offensive line has been that single aspect that's helped to almost single-handedly at times sink the whole team. Can't be that way this year. Got to have better play from the right guard position. And Christian Haynes stands as a centerpiece to making that happen. Hopefully he can get it. Hopefully he can tap into that ability that I do think he does have. I think there's a lot of reason to believe he will. Guys have tough rookie years. It's a hard position to play. Sometimes things take a little bit of time. And like I said, sometimes you need that full year in the weight room. Don't discount that. Going from college where you got to go into your classes, then you lift your weights, then you got to be on the field. Whereas now I'm a pro, now I'm doing this 24/7. Now I can just work on my body and make this 24/7 what I do, and what you can do with that to grow. What is one of the skills that can be grown in this league? Can't get quicker, usually can't get much faster, usually can't jump much higher than what you can walking in the door in this league. But you can get stronger. That is the thing that is within your control to do, and that there's a lot of guys that have been able to do that over time, but sometimes it does take just a little bit of time. I hope everybody's having a great day today. If you can for me, hit that like button. You guys know I appreciate it, and I really thank you guys for watching today. If you can too, well, maybe sub up if you get a chance on that. We've had a lot of new subscribers. I thank you guys for joining on up in that way. Let's see where my 12s are at today. We've got ourselves a show tomorrow as well set up, and then we're going to be doing just a tiny little bit of a break on some of the live stream shows here as we go into late June and early July, to let you guys know on that, as I know a lot of you guys will be kind of on vacation and doing your thing at that time. So I'll be doing a little bit of a vacation break myself as well. I've got some videos and some shorts that I'm going to be releasing for the channel to keep you guys locked in and loaded on that. But we're going to be doing this show today, and then tomorrow we'll be looking at what a championship run from your Seattle Seahawks would look like. So do please tune in tomorrow, as we will be doing a little bit of a break after that point there for, I'll be bouncing in and out if there's any kind of news coming down the track, but we'll kind of be doing a little bit of a slowdown until we get the lead into training camp on that. So just want to kind of prep you guys on that. Kendrick Lamar, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Sean, hello. HHG, good to see you too. Kendrick says, which offensive lineman do you anticipate improving the most from last year, and how does outside zone blocking scheme work during pass protection? Outside zone works in pass protection off of course, the play action. And so the hope is what you do with it is that you are a couple things you're trying to do here. First off, you're hopefully having a defense that's very keyed into the run game, Kendrick, because if I have a defensive line, for instance, that is very preoccupied with getting out laterally, out wide to go meet the wide zone to the edges, that is a defense that I can catch stretching itself too far out. And once they stretch themselves too far out in that, I can come back across off of play action, and I don't have to worry as much about the pass rush. I might have myself quite a bit of time there to make my determination about what I can do. And then you sometimes can simplify the reads for the quarterback, where you give them level concepts coming back across the way. Say nothing of, you usually have a tight end that'll come back as a drag across the formation. He tends to be uncovered, or the linebackers will be late to get to them because they're locked in on trying to stop the run first and foremost. So it really does do a couple of things. First, it sometimes removes the pass rush in itself just because they can't get back across the field to the other side of the quarterback. Next, it does a lot to create separation for your player very easily at that point, like with that linebacker. If I run the drag route and that in middle linebacker's got to pick up the drag, but he's also got to stay keyed in on the run that's going out to the outside zone on the other side of the field. That's a tough responsibility for that linebacker to first recognize, it's not a run, then recognize it's a drag route, then be on time to run step for step with that guy running that drag route. Can you imagine, for instance, in Arroyo running that drag route at 4.53 against an inside linebacker and him having to process all of that and then get up to speed to run step for step with him on the drag. And so there's that, the simplified reads with the quarterbacks. You give them the level concepts. You got a guy running short. You got a guy running long. You're coming back across the field. You've got a half field read, essentially. You don't have to worry about what's going on the left, to the far side of the field at that point. You give them the two-way option, or you say, hey, use your legs and go get 4 or 5 yards, 6 yards. It tends to give quarterbacks easy completions. It tends to be those kind of plays that you can early on in the game start to get a quarterback in rhythm off of it. But it's also one that's very hard to rush the passer on, Kendrick, because if you think about it with the outside zone, as a defensive tackle or defensive lineman, I'm going laterally post snap. Well, when I'm running, let's say, play action out of power, A and B gap runs, what am I doing defensively post snap as a defensive lineman? I'm coming right up the football field. I don't have to go lateral. I mean, maybe if I'm on the edges, I'm going a little bit lateral with that, but because of the gap responsibilities with the run game, you're really not doing that. So it's a lot easier, I would say, to rush the passer off of just those power runs inside, because there's not that initial point early on in the play where you're taking the bad lateral step, where you're taking basically the step to take you away from the pass rush, which I would offer is what the wide zone does. So it's a scheme that is just kind of naturally effective, I think, at helping out the offensive linemen and giving them a win in pass pro at times, even when they didn't truly get that win, Kendrick. And when it was kind of more of the scheme got you the win than it is you got the win. But this is what you want from your coaches, right? I don't want to just line guys up all the time and say, just get the job done. I want to give them advantages within my scheme to help them succeed. Something that I think was and has been missing here in recent offenses in many recent years. Part of the reason that we've gone through so many offensive coordinators. Great question. Misfit says, looks like he needs to get his butt down and anchor better. I would say that's probably so. And a little bit when you're not anchoring down like that, you don't trust your base as much. So you start trying to lean on the hands and the upper body strength and the tricks of the trade to get you through there a little bit. Yeah. Hawks goal, he won't get called because he's not putting his leg in the way. He's leaving it in the way. I agree. That's why I say it's a savvy move, Hawks goal. I'm not knocking him for it. It's a technique. It's a subtlety. It's one I don't think you're going to see any officials ever call that in that way. Misfit says, first the Rams, they'll call it a leg whip and penalties every other down in key moments. I'm thinking about, I saw Dan, the Buffalo, our Buffalo guy there with Roundtable Sports. He's got the, what is it? The like not mannequin doll, but the punching doll that they've got, that people do for working on MMA or whatever. And then he puts a referee's official's shirt over the top of him. And I think he punches it up on game day. I might do that this year, Misfit. I was thinking about getting one of those. Could relieve a lot of anger towards these officials during game day. Hawksco says, these are with Forsythe on his outside, hopefully with a better tackle. Lucas next year, the right guard will be significantly easier. Can't undersell that part of it, Hawksco, and we probably shouldn't bury that part, being that, look, I'm not trying to run Forsythe through the mud for a player that's no longer here, but that was god-awful. And he's been better at times, Ed Forsythe, but last year he was awful. Awful. Just, it was really tough to watch. And you got to imagine it's got to be that bad. It's going to have some cascading effect on the other players next to you. Hawk Skull, that's for sure. And yeah, I think you get a Lucas with a little bit more steady play. I think that you're going to get a little bit more steadiness from that guard position, especially as those guys, God forbid, we actually get some continuity and those guys actually can develop some chemistry between them. How good would that be? Haynes has been playing with wide zones since he was a sperm. It was absolutely maddening to me last year. They kept marching out Bradford. If Bradford is the starting right guard to start against 49ers week 1, I might just lose it. Well, they've been hyping up Bradford too. I'm sure you've been hearing it, AA. He's best shape of his life. We're hearing those kind of OTA stories. My eyes always start to roll. He's in the best shape of his life, so he wasn't in shape before. He just took him 3 years to kind of realize you need to get in the weight room. But to your point, Haynes is running specifically, really predominantly only zone when he was out there in college at UConn. So he does have a lot of familiarity with it. I do wonder about this a little bit though, too, AA, and doing some kind of research a little bit on the gap zone stuff. A lot of what's going on in the league right now is a lot of teams are starting to find a lot of success going back into the gap stuff versus zone. That gap's starting to become kind of the hotness a little bit. And I do wonder at that if there's going to be a little bit more prerequisite now for offenses to have to include gap throughout the course of the game. If you just kind of run zone 24/7, that defenses are going to be able to key on that and make it harder for you to get the job done with that. Ricardo says, in the film from last year, I'm surprised he got benched for Luamea. I guess he wasn't as good in run blocking. Yeah, I think that with them, they just said, you're kind of poorish as a run blocker. You're poorish as a pass protector. In Lumea, you had a guy that was a good run blocker, but then was awful as a pass protector. And I guess they took that math and they said, we'll take the latter by the end of the year. But they were scrambling. And as you go back through the snaps, as I'm watching their use of Bradford to Haynes early on in the year, they were searching. The whole year they were searching, and they weren't sold on either guy. Yeah, I think Grubb's a fine college coordinator, Ricardo. Some guys aren't necessarily built to do it at the pro level. And that's not any great shade to Grubb, but you can be a great coordinator and just your system doesn't work as well, in the pros. And it makes sense when you backtrack the fact that it is an air raid system. And there's air raid concepts throughout every offense in the league, but there's very few teams that are actually able to really run the air raid. It's a tough offense. And I think if you're going to run it probably at the pro level, I would estimate that you're going to probably need an exact kind of quarterback like a Jaden Daniels to make it go. Absent that, I'm not sure if it could be run as purely as Grubb was trying to run it last year. That says Grubb was terrible. Horrible red zone play calls. The amount of times I saw three receivers literally in the same spot in the red zone was ridiculous. Red zone was brutal. That was not a fun day at the office. Short yardage too, Seth. Stimpy says, what's the upside of the offense as a whole if Haynes and Olu lock in the middle? Well, if those guys can be just league average, I think that you're going to get at least that out of Gray Zabel, and you're going to get upper level play out of your edges and your tackles. So we come down to you have no weak links at that point, in my opinion. You've got steady play across the board, and steady play, consistent play will have many benefits that extend outside of just being better. You'll have running backs that'll trust their holes more. You maybe get less of Walker bouncing it outside. You get less of the quarterback getting jumpy in the pocket because he's not being inundated by constant pressure. So it would have a huge effect on this offense. Huge effect. Those are really the two biggest questions. Left guard's a bit of a question was able there, but I would say that even more so as I stand center and right guard. Can we get league average play on that? Or are we going to be looking at more of like we've got the 23rd rated center, and we've got we're back of the barrel on the right guards too, like we were last year. It's the key to getting the line to a functional level, I'd say. Not a dominant level, but a functional level. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation, Randall. I really appreciate you for that, brother. Hope you're having a good one, man. It's good to see you in the house, brother. Says, coming out was stressing more run or pass block. Coming out was stressing more run or pass block. Coming out was stressing more run or pass block. I don't know what you mean on that first question there, Randall. I think you're asking, was Haynes a better pass blocker than a run blocker coming out with UConn? And he was known for being a better pass blocker. The tape with him at UConn was not a guy that was like road grading really anyone. But he could also be a technician in the run game to where shield blocks, pin blocks, hitting reach blocks, getting out in space. He showed a pretty good acumen for being able to do those. But it's definitely the part of his game that'll probably have to grow a little bit more. I have a lot of feel that the pass protection is going to be fine, but the run block's really where I'm concentrating on. More likely to become a solid starter, Olu or Haynes? Wow, that's a good question, man. So I think that I think Olu is kind of topped out at like a league average center, which isn't bad. I think he's like the best year you're going to get from an Olu is going to be, he'll be the 15th highest rated center in the National Football League. But I think that that's his ceiling, Randall. I think with Haynes, that Haynes can be a guy that gets you into, I think he could be one of it's more valuable to have one of the 15 best guards than it is to have one of the 15 best centers, I'd say. And so I think Haynes has that chance to be just that little bit better than him. I think he can be that solid starter, which if I'm looking at a guy's league average, that's not necessarily, you could say that's a solid starter. It's kind of the semantics we get into there with it, Randall, right? But that'd be where I would separate the two between. I think that their upsides are probably kind of a little similar to where it all lands out, but league average is kind of where you see, I think them settling in. I think Haynes has got a little bit more upside than Olu has, but they're also got some similarities about where it'll all kind of shake out. There ain't going to be a big difference, I think, performative wise of where they land when it all gets said and done. But Haynes has got a bit more upside on that. And it does take big boys a year to adjust. You give a guy 4 or 5 years of weight training on another guy and off seasons and being in the, not just weight training, but how you eat. And I mean, the science of all that with these NFL teams and how it's come along. And, you're not going to be as far along in your rookie year as you will when you're 4 or 5 years into it. And we see this with a guy like Charles Cross, who came in similarly like Haynes, needing to gain some strength. You're not strong enough. You need to get more here. And he's really come along in that way. So I think that's a fair point, Randall. I do. And I'd agree with it for sure. Very, very similar upsides, almost a little bit. Haynes a little bit more than Olu, but Olu's kind of steady. He gives you that floor of like, I can be a 15th highest rated center and that can get the job done kind of place of things. Haynes just a little bit higher, just a little bit more. Thank you though, Randall. Appreciate you, brother. HHG, hopefully the line will be decent, man. Herbicide, I got to admit, I'm a little worried about the defensive end group. D-Law and Chenis don't stay healthy. What are we going to do? I think that the edge is always one herbicide that you can tend to go and find somebody for if you need to. If it was really an issue that popped up, they could make a trade. Whereas there are positions that I think you're kind of stuck with and there's not a lot you can do. I mean, I don't know if you can go make a trade for an offensive line between now and the trade deadline. Somebody that's really a good quality one, for instance. I think it can be hard to find, depending on the time of year, receivers or cornerbacks. Inside linebackers. But I always think that there's always some edge somewhere in the sport herbicide. There's always some guy out there that's maybe not super enthralled with his current place or just needs a new landing zone, a new place, a reset. I always feel like there's an edge somewhere out there that you can go jump out there and grab if you really need to and it gets down to that. The good news with, I think, D-Law and Chenna is just that you've got the stable of 4 deep here. And so you're not going to have to ever really stretch these guys out to the place that they've got to play too many snaps, and so that you can kind of protect them a little bit. Doesn't guarantee you're going to keep them healthy, but I think that it does take it further along that to feeling confident that you can get something out of them from that then. And in Uchenna's case, he's in a prove-it year this year, so I'd expect him to come in at his, having worked his butt off this offseason to be at his best. So I don't think it's as much an issue. I think it is something you worry a little bit about, but the fact that you have Hall and Mafe, 2 youngsters behind him, with fresh legs, I think you'll be fine there with it. Catalyst's Haynes was set up to fail in this terrible scheme. Definitely wasn't set up to succeed. That's for sure, Catalyst. That's 100% for sure. HSG, Justin Tucker just got suspended 10 games. He might have a hard time finding another landing spot. I think Tucker's career is probably going to be done. Alpha Sucks at mock drafts. Benton and Kubiak did some very good work with Trevor Penning. Made him a passable tackle last year. Hopefully we'll see some similar improvement from Haynes. Amen, man. They did they did God's work on that Saints offensive line last year. Very impressive what they did. And Trevor needed some work, like you say. He definitely needs some work. Ricky Haynes, college coaches were thrilled by the signing of Kubiak as that system fits Haynes' style of play. He does not need to get his strength up to not get pushed back when other linemen pull out. Does not need to get his strength up to not get pushed back when other linemen pull out. Not totally sure what you're saying on that one. Because that's a spot where with McDonald, he mentioned, I think a couple times last year with the strength needing to come forward on Haynes. And it does kind of show with him on tape. But you're right, he's not going to need to be a meat plow up there and just grade guys out of the line. You know, it's a little bit more of a finesse kind of blocking system. Alpha, I think Grubb could actually be a very good PGC at the pro level. His play designs were good. The real issue was his game script. Get him behind an experienced offensive coordinator and watch the magic happen. Play PGC. You guys are hitting me with some short stuff in the chat here today. I'm not quite sure what that means. PGC. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason definitely he got the job, and that, you know, there's some talent there as a coordinator, Alpha. There is. I do think that there's maybe some inherent things that might hold him back to being a great coordinator at the pro level versus the college level. And it is a different game, and there's a reason why Grubb was essentially the first guy that we've seen that's been an offensive play caller, offensive coordinator in college, who was then brought up to be an OC at the pro level. And the teams don't take this path for kind of a reason. It's a whole different game a little bit. Those hash marks change things, and how you attack changes. Maybe it can grow with time with Grubb, and maybe you can kind of learn that. And the guy's first time doing this and failing out and not having it go good doesn't mean it can't, you know, find some footing down the line with it on that. But it wasn't all bad. It's just that I do think there could be some inherent things in there that hold him back from ever really being able to make it work at the pro level. But guys, develop, change, evolve. Catalyst Fuaga might be my second favorite tackle behind Joe Alt in 2024. Great run blocker and a good pass protector. I loved him coming out. Fuaga was one of my Catalyst blue chip players, you know, and having followed the channel for quite a bit of time, that I don't give out blue chip grades very often in drafts. Fuaga was one of those guys. Joe Alt was one of those guys. Very, very easy evaluations from the tackle position. Very, very easy. And he's going to be a hell of a player for years to come. I think they're going to try him over maybe on the left side there, Catalyst. That'll be the interesting part with me with Wonga. I did think that he was at his best as just being a right tackle, but maybe he can work over there on the left side. Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for the $5 donation. Feed me. I really appreciate you for that. When we first drafted Murphy, you weren't that excited until you watched the tape. Is there any player that changed your mind off of a second look on tape? Oh, great question. No. The big thing with Murphy last year that changed some of my outlook of him was just realizing it wasn't a matter of Texas putting him out there at nose tackle once every blue moon, but that Texas was putting him out there a significant portions of his snap as a one tech, taking on double teams. They weren't using him at the rate we were using him last year, but it was kind of like, whoa, there is a lot of snaps here where he's being doubled. And this does now start to account for a little bit of the lack of production that we would have liked to have seen from Murphy. So that's what really kind of moved me on that one. But the other guys that I've gone back and watched the tape on, some of it has to do with just feed me that I'm getting more of a chance to look at more exhaustive tape prior to the draft than ever before. But everybody that I had looked at prior to the draft, coming out of the draft and re-looking back at their tape, was pretty much in about a similar place to me as far as, how I looked at a lot of these guys. I think I got kind of lost as a lot of people saw me in the not as hyped up in the Milrow and the Arroyo picks that didn't kind of realize as much that there were so many other picks in this draft that I love the guys on, that I had them so many rounds ahead of where we took them, be it Torrey Horton or Ricky White. Somebody else I was trying to think of, him spacing out on the name of Cable Dew. I liked a lot as well. So, a lot of guys we took a couple rounds later than I actually had them positioned, which you really do like there. But no, everybody else fit. We're going back watching the tape, fit to what I had seen off of them with the kind of the initial blush with that. With Murphy, he was kind of an exception with it just because of that, use at Texas, that I just had never really anticipated that they had used him to that great of a degree, going back through all the games and looking at how much he was at that nose tackle position. It was kind of crazy. I don't know why there's such a draw to put him there either. It's like he's a pure 3 tech all day. I would have him living there, or let him work off the edge from time to time. But it was by necessity last year. We know that too. But Texas did it too, and it wasn't a necessity with Texas. They had Devondre Sweat down there. I don't quite get it. I maybe would need a coach to explain it to me on that one, feed me a little bit. But nope, everybody else was kind of the same, going back and looking through what I thought I'd seen with them on tape on what they brought. And maybe there being a little bit of more hope with Riley Mills that he can play more of a power edge role, I suppose, being that I wasn't kind of as familiar with his track record and background of doing that, and that maybe there's an eye to having him do that once he can get healthy. Hard to say there a little bit. But nobody else was really on that. Thank you, man. Appreciate the donation. Says that I do think coaching has a huge play in our O-line. Play calling can easily help a struggling O-line. Ben and Kubiak have a track record of improving their O-line play pretty significantly. They do, and I agree with everything you said 100%. It's can't undersell a good offensive line coach, and that there aren't a lot of them out there. It isn't that we got 32 NFL teams and there's 25 grade A offensive line coaches. You might have 10. Good news is we now got one of the 10. It is the way it kind of goes. Alpha, I had Fuanga and Alt as 1A and 1B. That class last year, even Fuanga is an absolute mauler in the run game. Was easily shocked to see Latham go over him. Yeah, I think I did have Fuaga ahead of Latham myself too as well. I did like Latham a lot though too. I mean, he was kind of very close in that same kind of territory for me when you put them all together. But Fuaga and Alt were definitely different, man. They were easy blue chip grades. HHGB, why do you prefer run blocking over pass? Is it easier to do? Do I prefer O-lineman? Oh, why do O-linemen prefer run blocking over the pass? Is it easier to do? Yeah. I mean, the real simple way of putting this is that you get to take it to the guy rather than the guy gets to take it to you. If I can force the action, if I can, take it to you and make, essentially I can deliver the first punch, that gives me much more of a chance to better win the rep versus if I've got to stand back and wait for you to essentially initiate the contact. So there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of it as well as that defensive linemen tend to be more athletic and quicker than offensive linemen, just the nature of the beast. So, when you start backing up and setting up in pass pro, you're putting yourself vulnerable to those guys that can be twitchy and juke you and get you going one way and then go the other way. Versus if I get a launch off the ball and get into your chest, I can sometimes limit and negate your quickness and your athletic gifts that you have with it, because then it becomes about power and control and torque and all that. Catalyst is if the Saints win any games next year, best believe it'll be through the run game. It ain't going to be through their quarterbacks. I'll tell you that, Catalyst. Tyler Shock and Spencer Rattler are not getting the job done, especially with the receivers that they're throwing to the outside. But they are putting together still a decent enough offensive line this year. They're one of the teams that is smart about how they put resources to the offensive line and who they draft there. So it could be enough to help them a little bit there, but I think they are in for a bit of a tough season. Catalyst is Kelvin Banks, left guard. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing. They got a lot of guys that can kind of play a variety of positions on that line. It's a good line. If they can stay healthy, Catalyst, it may be enough to kind of, they're going to be a good little guinea pig test case. You have a team that, Not rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, not good quarterbacks. Aging running back. Receiver position that's a little bit lean. Not necessarily the greatest of tight ends, but you got a very close to maybe a grade A offensive line. How far can that carry you? Saints will be a great test case on this. DJ says Grubb would be a great passing game coach. Oh, that's maybe what you were doing, was passing game coach was the PGC. Okay, now I understand that one. Yes, I think he could be a great passing game coordinator. Yeah, 100%. I do find myself just a little reticent in thinking that Grubb would ever be a real good OC in this league. I think that there are some inherent things within him that may hold him back. I think his predilection to want to throw the ball so much. I think the fact that he's looking to attack mismatches rather than coverages, which is a very college thing to do, would make it very hard for him. But I do think, as somebody said, he did come up with some very creative designs out there in the passing game, and a lot of creativity, a lot of willingness to attack you in a variety of ways. So I could see him developing in that way. Yeah. Sorry, I did PGC. Okay, passing game coordinator. I got it now. I'm a little slow on the button today. Those tunnel screens, downfield passing concepts were working when the pass protection was there. He's also good for the quick plays on 3-step dropbacks. Yeah, 100%. There were some good things he did, like you say. I think that, he was able to, early on, especially DK, get him isolated in the slot and find a way to get DK at his best there early on. That was kind of cool. Those tunnel screens are one of the things I hope that we can continue to implement into this season, because those things work. I mean, that worked every time we went to it, that tunnel screen, and we had some big-time plays off the back of it. Much like I hope we can kind of work in a little bit of the gap stuff that worked good last year too, even though we're going to zone, that you kind of recognize we also ran this pretty well when we did this last year. Maybe we want to kind of include some of that. I don't think we want to toss all the baby out with the bathwater thing with Grubb's system. I think there's some stuff that you could definitely say to Kubiak, check the film on this. Can we utilize, I know this isn't inherently part of your scheme, but can we utilize some of this stuff moving into this next year? Because we did do it well last season. So there were some good things there with Grubb. It's not as much as just a purely bad coordinator. It's that the bad things within him as a coordinator were enough to heavily sink the offense. That's really, to me, where I see it. Kaz says both can be true. Grubb and the O-line were at fault. There we go, man. I agree with you. I think there's sometimes a drive in football to get to the simplistic answer of things when the answer tends to be a lot more complicated than simple. HHG, as bad as Grubb was, I still think it's unfair to him when the O-line was ranked 33rd. We didn't do any service to help. Would he be as bad if the O-line was decent? Well, I think that's where some of this is that you drove towards the offensive line's inefficiencies. When you're throwing the ball 67% of the time, HHG, some of this comes back to what you're doing. When your sequencing of plays sucks, when your predictability like it was. What is there the thing like if we're under center, we never are going to hand the ball off. If Geno Gunn's under center, it was always going to be a play action. There's a lot of things inherently within Grubb's offense that made it very hard for his offensive linemen. Now, like Catalyst says above on this, it doesn't have to be, the chicken or the egg on this. It can be a little bit of both. But I don't think that that's where, again, you can just go, well, then it's just the offensive line, and he was just doing the best he could, making chicken salad out of chicken S. I don't know if I could really go as far as that with Grubb. I think he had some stuff to work with. Would any of an offensive coordinator come in and be able to make this thing successful last year with that offensive line? Maybe not. Could you have gotten more consistent play out of the offense? Could you have been more committed to the running game? Could you have put your offensive line in better situations where they weren't being asked to deal with 7-step drops and having to hold in their blocks that much longer? Yeah, you could have. But it's where it's complicated, and it's a bit of this and it's a bit of that. Ricky says, what's the best case scenario for the team moving forward, or what young player do you want to succeed immediately and take a starting job? It has to be Milroe, right? Trade Sam and save the money. Well, I mean, if you've got a quarterback that can ascend up there and become really good right out the gate, if Milroe could become Russell Wilson in 2012, even in his level of play, to have a rookie quarterback on that contract is the most valuable thing in football. So that would be the case, on top of, as you mentioned here, Ricky, it would open the door to you being able to then potentially move a Sam Darnold and get something back in return for him. So that is the best case scenario for the team because that solves so many issues into the future. It helps with your salary cap. It helps to make sure you got your young quarterback for the future. I mean, you're really in good shape if that could be the case. Hard for me to find even what would be the second one behind that. I guess I would probably say Gray Zabel might be the next guy, Ricky. If Gray Zabel comes in and he's an above average left guard for you immediately, I think that could have as big an impact on this team as any other player and what they could do outside of Milroe. That would be the one to me where you really would love to see that thing locked in. But I think you got it, man. I think you're on it with that one. Alpha sucks. I think Carolina actually takes the division this year. Canales is very good at his job, and if Bryce picks up where he left off last season, they're going to be dangerous. Very well could, man. Very well could. I haven't loved their offseason. I did like how they finished up last year, Alpha. I don't know if I've loved the offseason and what they've done. I'm a little more probably colder on them than you are with that, but I could see it happening, that's for sure. And that division's wide open. Beamy, I think the tunnel screen worked because every time JSN got the ball, he made big plays. He was a really good vision for a wide receiver. He does. He has really good open field vision with the ball in his hands. He's not as much of a juker or a spin cut, all that, but he can just kind of use his lateral change of direction a little bit there to open things up for him when he's got the ball in his hands. And boy, those tunnel screens, I think we ran 5 or 6 of them, and they were all deadly as hell. Hell, we even ran the hook and ladder off of one for some tremendous success. Seth says Carolina has quietly built a good roster and improved on their weaknesses. I have my eye on them too. Oh, we got a couple pro Carolina folks in here. All right. Maybe I'm selling them short here. Femi's got Penix taking the next step. Possible. At NFC South's going to be fun to watch, man. Hyper competitive, and I don't think anybody's got that one on lock. NFC South will be a tough division. I don't think the Bucs will be as good without Cohen, but I said the same when they lost Canales. So maybe they just produce quality coordinators. It's hard to say, man. You do wonder when you lose multiple coordinators like that, when you keep getting kind of dinged like that, if you can kind of maintain and hold it on. I think what does help the Bucs is that they have put together a really, really good, competent offense for whoever's the offensive coordinator. Baker's been able to realize his potential. You have maybe one of the better offensive lines in the sport. Mike Evans is still making it go. Godwin, Emeka Egbuka is going to give them, if Godwin can't come back and really be able to play the slot consistently from the jump, you've got Emeka Egbuka, and then they drafted the kid out of Washington last year also there. So they've got an offense that's really set up, a couple good backs there. They're in a really nice position, I think, whoever the coordinator is going to be to be able to still find some success. I would have them in that division for me as the team that's going to win that division. I don't trust in Atlanta. I certainly don't trust in New Orleans. And with Carolina, I just think that they're still probably about a year away. Not that they'll be bad, but they're a year away from really being able to really make some noise. Beat I think Denver will have a crazy, surprising year this year. I put money on them to win a playoff game this year. Ooh, all right. And they have a hell of a defense, man. That's for sure. Hell of a defense. Catalyst says, love what Carolina's done too, Seth. Did a good job dressing the defense line. Got a big receiver for Young. Extended J.C. Horn. There we go. It's a bit odd to watch them release Clowney, man. I do wonder a little on their defense, just a bit. HHG, I was curious. I looked up when the earliest a team can clinch their division, and if everything went right, week 9 is the earliest. Boy, can you imagine clinching your division week 9? Holy moly. I'd be worried about my team if they clinch that early. Then you'd get a little bit relaxed. Yeah, Denver's defense get a little bit of coverage. I don't know if there's just a team that everyone feels like is just legit best defense in football, no doubt about it. I think there's a variety of teams that probably have some pretty good arguments to be made for it. Thomas Cox, how you doing, man? It's good to see you in the house. It's crazy that the more sports analysts look at Seattle's offseason, the more they don't know how smart Seattle moves have been. FanFest will be telling, and preseason will be telling. It will be indeed. And you're right about that. It is a national perspective. It's Vegas's perspective. It seems general fans' perspective somehow that this team is, we don't buy it. We don't buy into it. We're not in it. We're not. And then part of me struggles with this, and we are going to be covering this a little bit tomorrow in Thomas in talking about what a championship season would look like and why I do believe the potentiality of that does exist with this team. That it is not just a pie in the sky. It is not just a wishing on a shooting star. That you have a team in the Seattle Seahawks that's had 3 straight winning seasons. This is the only team in NFL history that's had back-to-back winning seasons and not made it into the playoffs in either of those prior 2 years. You've been doing that while you have been building up young talent. You've been doing that while you've been developing young talent slowly but surely. You've had success while so many other teams in that kind of state would be having 5-win seasons, 6-win seasons, sucking. And you haven't. But you touch on something, Thomas, where you would think by the nature of the discussion towards the Seahawks, by the nature of the outlook towards the Seahawks, that somehow or another that has been the case, that we've not come off 3 straight winning seasons, that we are not just simply right there on the precipice. And why are they doing it? Because for all of these analysts and for all of these people that look at this sport, for all of the complication, for all of the layers, for all of the different levels of chess that you have to play, it all gets super simplified for them. Super simplified for them. It all just kind of comes down to the quarterback. All that other stuff ends up not mattering. It's all the quarterback. It's all the savior of the quarterback. And if he isn't this, if he isn't that, then he ain't nothing. And that's their outlook of it. And that's where then from their standpoint, I don't take much away from it, Thomas, in their assessment, in their analyzation of it, because it's all empty. It's all based on just one little part and ignoring all of the rest of the process at play. And I think that that's what they do. I think that that's, when you look at some of their outlooks of this, that they're just all really quite simply, and I get into so many debates and discussions with this. It happens on the round table, happened with Gino last year. Where so much of people's viewpoint of NFL teams is just driven by simply only the quarterback position. That is the only thing that drives success, failure, whatever. And I disagree. Especially where we're going right now with the era of this football, with this evolution of football, with the run game mattering more than ever. I highly disagree that it's all just about the quarterback. And while I get that Sam Darnold hasn't had the greatest of careers, last year was, not just him getting by. Last year was not just him set up with everything set up to go downhill as fast as humanly possible. He had more pressures than Geno Smith. He was sacked 2 less times than Geno Smith. And we feel like with Geno Smith that he was inundated throughout the year last year. But you don't see that benefit of the doubt there for Sam on this. Instead, it's like the narrative is he was out there just riding high behind this grade A offensive line. Narrative is a funny thing like that. Kendrick says, how do you think Shock will do for New Orleans? I liked his arm talent, Kendrick. I think it got a little bit overboard. He's one of those quarterbacks to me that just started to elevate. And it's almost like the elevation occurs once he's done playing quarterback at the college level. Now this elevation occurs through the pre-draft evaluation process. And I feel like my history in watching quarterbacks have this happen is one that you go, you're sort of talking yourself into it when you let that swing so heavily and take so much of the onus, being that, you're selling yourself on the guy after the college football season. You're selling yourself on the guy as much because you have a desperation for the position. Well, do the Saints have a desperation for the position? You got Spencer Rattler and Carr retires. Yeah, you're pretty damn desperate. So was it your desperation or was it that you just trusted the talent? Can the kid spin it? Yeah, he can spin it. But is he an older quarterback prospect who has a very, very rich injury history? Yeah, he does. And that would make me very worried about making that if our Seahawks had drafted him, that would make me worry about making him our quarterback in the future. I don't know about guys don't get more healthier with time. If they're beat up in college, they don't suddenly become healthy as a pro, in my opinion. That's not the way that plays out. But the arm talent's legitimate. He plays the position fearless for being as beat up and injured as he's been in the past. I don't think it's going to work for the Saints long term. I think within 2 to 3 years from now, they're looking at another quarterback. I think that they just didn't have a lot of great options right now, and they didn't have an opportunity to go get one of the better ones in this draft, and so they just went make the best of a bad situation and just try to get by on it. He could become good. He's got the talent, but those other factors just weigh too heavily for me. Catalyst says, I think Greenlaw is one of the better coverage linebackers, and their secondary is scary. Brandon Jones is not talked about enough. Jones, good player. And with Greenlaw, Catalyst, you saw last year in the Rams 49er game when Greenlaw finally came back from the Achilles tear, what he could bring to that Niners defense, because it was a night and day difference, him versus Campbell out there, and just the juice
He brought the juice back into that defense. Unfortunately, though, we know by the end of that game that he was not able to maintain and go. That was the game that Campbell quit halftime, which was kind of ironic because if you hadn't quit halftime, you would have been out there playing in the second half with the injury to Greenlaw, and Greenlaw wasn't able to really get through the rest of the year. We'll see where he has had a setback this offseason. Catalyst has Greenlaw with the had some other injury pop up. So we'll see where his health is at, but no doubt about it. He makes that Denver defense better. He is a huge improvement over what you had in Cody Barton last year and what you're rocking out there with him. So he's got potential. And they've got the kid, too, that they're getting back from the ACL injury from Arkansas they got a couple of years ago as well. So they got a couple guys being returned to the ranks there. It's good defense. It's a defense as much as anything that helped drive them into the playoffs last year. Maybe able to do it again. Thomas says, if I could put $100 down on Seattle winning more than 5 games, I totally would. You got to put the money down on 7.5, Thomas. You got to go 8 wins, buddy. 5's easy, man. You gotta step up at the table for the 8. Catalyst is not to mention they drafted Jada Barron as their slot, which is great. Jada's a hell of a player. Jada Barron and Patrick Surtain in your secondary. I mean, there's 2 positions where those guys aren't going to be targeted much. Not a lot of throws going in those guys' direction. And that's with a good defensive front. Nick Bonito out there is a good player. He's really developed. They're going to be good defense. That's a tough division, though, too, man. The West, NFC West, AFC West, man. It's the toughest divisions that you're going to find in all of football. And maybe by far. We might come to find both those divisions end up being the best in football by far. Wouldn't shock me in the least. Health is definitely a question, yeah. But it stood out. I remember because it was a Thursday night game and was watching it for the NFC West roundtable and just checking and just how much it did stand out, Catalyst, how they looked different when he was out there. And I honestly, prior to that, would have said, I don't know if that's the kind of impact Greenlaw is going to bring to that defense that much. Because it's a will linebacker, and how much can a will really turn around a fate of a defense? Well, it showed me quite a bit last year when he was in there, I'll tell you that. Because it was a night and day difference between the two. Seth says, God, I hope the Niners start to pay for Purdy's contract and all the extensions they've done for their older players. The pain's getting felt, Seth, and it's even been felt this offseason. That's why they're cutting away $80 million of dead money. They recognize and realize this ain't going to work. This ain't sustainable. We got to keep it moving. And if you're going to eat $80 million, you're probably going to have a hard time to field up the same kind of competitive roster that you fielded in recent years out there. Very top heavy in addition to that, not able to work around if they have major injuries across the board. The Niners, they're dancing on the edge of that knife, man. And we'll see if they can dance all the way through the season and get through with it with their easy schedule. But make no mistake about it, they are dancing on that knife. Catalyst Nick Bonito broke out. Zach Allen, Franklin Myers are good. They are. Still got DJ Jones in there too. He's a solid player for them. A defense without really very many weak links, I would say. Cattle says the Niners linebackers are ass except for Warner. Need depth, and there's the little there now. Yeah, you talk about a team who took Nick Martin in a desperation situation. You lose Greenlaw, Campbell's out. You've got the kid they took out of TCU, Winters, there is your only other guy opposite Warner. It was a desperate need. I mean, I had a 6th round grade on Nick Martin. You took him in the 3rd round. That was a joke of a pick. But it speaks to just where this happens at the end of Super Bowl windows. This happens after a Super Bowl window that's been a little bit elongated. The pain even comes even more when the pain comes. And it does feel like the pain has kind of come to the Niners, and that if they can stay healthy, it's one thing, but if they lose 1 or 2 guys, key places, Catalyst, that ship is sinking and sinking fast, just like it did last year. Phoebe says, just wait until our young players master their positions. Like quarterback, it's like all positions. A lot of young teams don't make the playoffs at all, to give us a couple of years before we have the talent. It's part of why I think it's so impressive that you've had a winning record the past 3 years, to your point, as this young talent has developed and learned. Because it tends to be, as the talent is so young and needs to develop like ours has over the last couple of years, that with that doesn't come winning seasons. With that tends to come losing seasons. And you feel that pain to get the pleasure later on down the line. Well, we got a little bit of the pleasure on the front end of this. But now we're going to have I think that gives you even more indication about the upside that exists down the line from it. That those players, even as they were learning the ropes and finding their way, were able to find some success. Very encouraging. Thomas says, I don't get what Geno can do in a division with Mahomes and Herbert. The other went to the playoffs, the rookie quarterback. People improve the Raiders, but not like the Seahawks. Yeah, Pete gives them the better floor than they've had there in recent years, but it's a damn hard division. I don't know what they're going to be able to do within it either. I mean, there's no easy outs there, and you're going to have to grind your way through. So we'll see what they can do there, man. I'll never discount Pete, but he didn't make it easy on himself either. They're going to the Raiders. Hey, Daniel, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. Cattle says 49ers sack 50% of their defense to pay Purdy. I know they drafted almost all defense, but it's still not pretty in my opinion. Super top heavy with little depth. That's exactly the way I see it. Very top heavy, and you can get by on that top heavy nature if it can stay healthy, but can it stay healthy when so much of the top heavy nature of your roster is so old? It's a gamble, right? It's a big time gamble there. And they made their choices on that, and I think the Purdy contract just kind of takes them over the top to closing the window when it's all said and done. Is it going to happen this year, or will it be next? I'm not sure on that part of it. But is the window a coming a closed? Yes, it is. You better believe it. Thomas says, I think Knight and Jones are the next coming of Warner and Greenlaw, plus using MORE all over the place. I love it, Thomas. I see it similarly. I see it very similarly. I think Ernest Jones won't ever get to maybe the top end of a guy like Greenlaw, or like Warner, but that the combination of a Tyrese Knight and an Ernest Jones can be just as good of the combination of a Greenlaw and a Warner when it's all said and done. The collective, if you were. Grandizer Brando, speaking of Carolina Panthers, Panther Nation podcast dropped a live of top 10 Panther players going into the 2025 season. Maybe an idea for you to do, if not planned already by you. It's possible. I can look at maybe putting something like that together. It's a great idea, Grandizer. Thank you, man. See if maybe I can kind of come up with something on that one. I'm always looking for good show ideas, man. So please, if you guys ever have any suggestions, do let me have it, because always looking for good stuff to talk about and turn over. And hey, the one show we're doing today, the Christian Haynes show, was a recommendation by a subscriber on the channel. Stimpy, thank you for 22 months as a Hawks Nest member, working your way to 2 years, man. Thank you for that. Says, if we get into a deep playoff run, I bet the media will be talking about how they don't think Sam is good enough to win the Super Bowl. Imagine we do, though. Well, that is what tomorrow's show is going to be about. And it is not a show to gas you up, to falsely hype you guys up, but a show that is about my belief in this team. And I believe in the course and the direction this team is going. I believe they're going to find success. I believe that this is moving in the direction to get us back to an elite status. The question is timing. Is it this year, or we're going to have to wait a year on this? But the timing is coming soon. It's coming fast. And it's going to hit beautifully when it does. And so, yes, I definitely do. I definitely do think we've got the potential to be that team. Tomorrow, I'm going to go bit by bit. I'm going to stack it up like I've been trying to do on these shows, brick by brick by brick, to try to show and indicate here a little bit of how sorry, one second here. About that. So tomorrow's show is going to be entirely upon how good this team can be. Can they get to a championship run next season? And it's not going to be a show I'm putting together, again, to try to gas you guys up, but that this can come out to be. Partly because you've been building this up. We're not starting a rebuilding process this year. We're not starting from zero. That we've been on this pathway of just bit by bit getting this a little bit more improved, bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. And so we're getting to that spot of things. It's a process to get there, but there is absolutely, to me, conceptually, Super Bowl talent on this team. Do young guys got to come forward? Do you need some guys to pop? Do you need some all-pros to come to the play? Yeah, you need some things to progress. You do. But the potentiality is absolutely there on this football team, I'm telling you. Grandizer Brander, of course, top 10 Hawk players going into 2025 season. All right, I'm with it, man. I'll see what I can kind of come up with on that. HHG says, hot take, if Lyle gets fired, he doesn't make the playoffs with this schedule, barring injuries. I would say if Yeah, it depends on the injuries thing, but if they're healthy and they don't make the playoffs with this schedule, that's definitely going to be a seat that goes from being warm to being on fire. Thomas, you know my position with the Rams. I think Stafford's going to be over the hill. There is a reason why they traded their number one pick to Atlanta. Lucky usually don't last. Lucky don't last, man. That's true. You're going to lean on that and hope for something that tends to be where this tends to go wrong, but you're just going to hope it's right. I don't want to take that risk myself, but they're doing so like the Niners are because you're in that position just trying to squeeze that last little bit out if you can. Well said, Thomas. Well said. I think that there is a little bit of, and remember with them on this as well, there was a little bit of the hesitancy to pay Stafford. There was already a little bit of a thought from the Rams position on this of maybe we let Stafford go to the Raiders, we get a pick, and then when, maybe we turn this around this year. That they were thinking about that. They absolutely were. Jordan, thank you for another $5 donation, Jordan. Very kind of you, man. I really appreciate it. The Niners are so thin in their depth that 1 to 2 injuries will derail their Super Bowl hopes. Not that I think they can even fully healthy. Yes, I agree with this as well. And you can do this is an exercise that you can kind of roll where I think anybody that you kind of just say it out loud to somebody and you say, okay, everybody stays healthy on the roster, relatively speaking, but Brandon Ayuk's not really able to come back, but by midseason, you lose Fred Warner early, you lose Bosa early. That's it. You're done. You're done as a Niner team. That's all that takes. Or let's play the exercise a different way. I do think Ayuk's going to take about half the year to get back no matter what. That's built into this kind of no matter what. But okay. Trent Williams and DeMondre Lenore go down for a majority of the season. They're sunk. They're done, Jordan. I think you can kind of play this exercise with one of two of any of their key players. George Kittle. Go like a George Kittle, maybe Christian McCaffrey. You lose both of those two pieces. Do you have enough offensively to make this thing go? I don't know. I don't know about that. In fact, I tend to think like you say, 1 to 2 of those major injuries early on in the year, they're toast. That'd be my outlook of it as well. Thomas says, plus, while I don't believe in Murray, I think the Cards are young and talented, plus Seattle's talent's all over the place. Totally different than 2020. Yeah, 100%. And I think the Cardinals got good talent too as well. It is that lack of trust in Murray as much as anything. I think, what was it, Coleman put out the stat yesterday where Cardinals ran, I think, 88 fade routes over the course of last year, something like that, 77 or 88. So maybe it was 77. So they ran 77 fade balls throughout the course of last year, the most in the NFL, but I think they only completed like 8 of them. Just kind of speaks to the fact that, why are they throwing that so much? Because Kyler can't throw in the middle of the field. So got to throw outside the numbers that much more. Got to go that much more crazier with it. Doesn't mean that it's effective or efficient, though. Just means that that's the only place you can kind of throw to with that quarterback to get him effective. Seth says, it's funny the Niners make fun of us for signing Sam. Safe, cheap contract with zero risk. Meanwhile, they gave Purdy the keys to the building. They did indeed. Yeah. HHG, I'm convinced the Cardinals don't want Kyler anymore, but are afraid to take that bad year. I agree with that, man. Especially when they didn't have a clear pathway to their next quarterback. I absolutely think that was a little bit at play here. I don't think they wanted to sign him to the initial contract. I mean, that's why they put the whole contract rider in there about studying. And that itself shows right there that they were a little bit like, HA, we get the black kitty. Got the black kitty today. She's hanging out. Jordan says, I think the Cards know what they're doing with him in terms of they will move off of him, find a new quarterback if he doesn't perform this year. Yeah, and some of that's been that the contract has been so new that if you are going to move off of him, say nothing of finding the replacement quarterback, you also are then eating that dead money. And maybe you want to get to the place of the deal where if you don't have the quarterback to replace him, might as well take him to the place of the deal where it actually makes it economically viable for us to move off of him without having to cut off our nose to spite our face. And then in addition to that, actually having a different quarterback that you can pivot then to. That can improve the position at that point, especially with where the roster is at, because the roster is very solid. Yeah, I think that that's a fair way of looking at it. I think the Cardinals aren't taking necessarily a bad approach on this one. They're just stuck in a bit of a situation where I don't think they're completely sold on the guy either. Jordan, but Murray is just good enough to make it hard. Yeah, hard to find a replacement, Jordan. Exactly, man. It's a bit of a conundrum they find themselves. We're not completely sold on the quarterback, but you also don't have the better options out there. It's a pickle. Mr. Kane, brother from another mother, how you doing? Hawks Nest. So you taking show ideas, maybe stream from a local strip club? This is sexist. I apologize for my caveman behavior, but a show I would still tune in for. No, we were celebrating the female form, Mr. Kane. That's all we're doing there. I don't think that there's anything down in that. I think that's something everybody can get behind. Who doesn't want to celebrate the female form? I think that's a great idea. I better get a couple strip clubs in on that. Thomas, I know I love Pete, but I don't know if he has adapted his scheme. I know Pete last year we were screaming to blitz and change up coverages, plus let the OC play the middle of the field, etc. So the key with Pete, I think Pete's still got a lot of ability to coach. I think that he still can do a lot of things a lot of other coaches struggle with doing, especially when it comes to motivating players and creating a locker room of excitement that gets people really tapped in. But I think that the place that stands out is he going to adjust his scheme on both sides of his ball, on both sides of the ball? Is he going to adjust his way? Is he going to change his way, or is he going to stay locked into the old? That's the key with him. And that's the one none of us have that answer, Thomas, because we know he was so ardently holding to the thought process that he didn't have to change, that he was waiting on the cylindrical nature of football to come back around to where his style of football would work, could be effective again. And if he does that, I don't think that that's going to have the success there in the Raiders. He's got to adjust the schematics. It's just pure and simple as that. Phoebe says, I think the hire of Mike Macdonald is going to look back as one of the best hires in Seahawks history. Am I wrong for thinking that? No, I think that you're on the button with it, man. I think that there's a great chance that we look back at it and say it that way. Bold take, but a smart take, and I can see it happening, man. Let's go. HHG, it was funny when Jesse thinks Purdy can lead them to a Super Bowl. Well, he already lost you one. Yeah. And I think Jesse's trying to, navigate those waters, which are tough waters to navigate, where he knows what Purdy is exactly. But at the same point in time, he knows he's got so much of the fan base that just doesn't want to hear it, and we've been down that road before with quarterbacks here as well. I know how that goes. And it's a hard line to kind of walk. You're trying to be honest and truthful, but you're aware of as well that there's so many that are just like, you're getting hissing sounds when you try to bring up the takes. Thomas is honestly, I think if Kittle gets injured, Niners are done, but none of them could get injured, and still they're not the 2023 Niners. Yeah, they're not as stacked a roster as they've been in prior years, Thomas. Whether they stay healthy or not, that's just absolutely the truth. I think even Niner fans would definitely give the ground on that. But they can't sustain much, man. Partly because of that, because you're not as strong a roster, because you are sold, because you don't have the depth. But in addition to that, because you're also star-driven. And Kittle, coming off one of the best years of his career and at his age and just getting paid, well, we'll see where he's at. I feel the same way about Trent Williams. And we know with NFL players, when they tend to get this well paid, this old, start to play less games. Just kind of goes hand in hand. Seth says, it's funny that CMC was practically out all season and they went and extended him, making him the second highest paid. Yeah, exactly. I think they gave him that deal just prior to the start of the year, Seth. And that's tough. That's a tough look. And that's where I would have come back. And this is the problem with the Niners in this situation is that, okay, you want to reward everybody. Okay, you want to pay everybody. You want to extend this thing. If you want to elongate your Super Bowl window, you're eventually going to have to make some hard decisions. You're eventually going to have to pivot off guys. You're eventually not going to give Christian McCaffrey another contract extension. He's just going to have to play out his deal with his age, with what you already paid him. But they don't want to do that every step of the way on this, including the Brock Purdy contract, Seth. They pay up. George Kittle again this offseason. They pay up. I mean, didn't they just extend Warner again? They pay up. You're going to pay everybody. You're going to extend everybody. You're going to pay everybody to the bitter end. Guess what? You eventually do get to the bitter end. And it is not a pretty picture. And it's where the Niners are definitely headed right now. Rams House in the house. What's up, Rams House? It's good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for checking out the channel today. Thomas, I totally wanted the Niners to sign Purdy. It was a stupid move. Now they can suck for a couple of years. Hopefully so. Cool Breeze, I don't think there'll be a good market for Murray if the Cards try to move, so they are screwed. Yeah, part of the reason probably too you haven't moved off him in addition to the contractual hit that you have to take, the lack of replacement quarterback that you have out there waiting in the wings, but then also the third aspect of this being Cool Breeze. What was really the returns you would get for Murray if you were going to look to move him in a trade? Probably not a whole hell of a lot, especially on the current contract that he's on. Mr. Kane, thank you for the $10 donation, Mr. Kane. I appreciate you for that, my friend. And thank you so much. My brother, I should say. It's my brother. We got blood somewhere upstream there. No, Mr. Kane. It might have forked off, but it's up there somewhere upstream. He says, just because you are the very best on YouTube. Ah, that's very kind of you to say, my friend. Thank you so much, as well as being a long time member of the channel. I really, really do appreciate it. Your guys' support is unbelievable here on this channel. I just have to say it. Any other time I ever watch other live stream shows, and it can be even stuff that's not even football related, just watching other shows and watching people that do live streams and even just big monster audiences. Nobody out there gets the love, bang for buck like I see myself getting from my people out here. And you guys are absolutely really, really giving and really, really kind. And all you guys do for this channel. We're able to go through the off seasons and the quiet times and just hit it hard and never slow down an inch. It's because of that support that you guys bring. I was doing the, Mr. Kane as a member of the channel, I was doing a look at the members, and I hadn't checked in on my members stuff. And usually off seasons, we'll get down to 30, 40, 50 members on the channel. And it's like, wow, we're well over 100. We got the Patreon cooking over there on the other side of it too. So thank you guys for what you do on that. It is not ever lost on me how much I'm in a really, really advantageous, special position to be able to do this with the support you guys bring. And it just motivates me that much more to do that much more. It really does. I love you guys for that. And I thank you guys for that. You're awesome, Mr. Kane. Thomas, they could have traded Purdy to try to draft a rookie. It's what Dallas does or what the Saints did with Carr. Sometimes you don't sign a quarterback who's more mid than 5 to 10. Yeah, that's the move to be made. And I think there's a couple of these moves you could have looked in recent years with them on extensions or doing this here or doing that there, where you would have come to them and said, rather than doing this, take the little bit of the pain, and now you can maybe elongate this even further down. You don't have to have a hard stop on this. It's not a dynastic run because you haven't won a Super Bowl. But on this good run that you've had, you could elongate it, but you're going to at some point or another have to make some tough decisions to make that happen. And they're making this sort of every time they come up to it, I don't want to make that hard decision. Let's just do the easy thing. And the easy thing was praying Purdy. That's the easy move. The hard move would have been to kind of reset it and understand that you're not driven by your quarterback here. You're driven by your head coach. You're driven by the supporting cast. You're driven by a good running game. You're driven by needing a guy that can be competent at the position. You got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. I hate Jimmy Garoppolo, but that's absolutely an example of the fact that Shanahan, this offense, this team doesn't need grade A quarterback play to get the job done. So don't pay for it. Or if you're going to pay for it, don't pay for it to get a guy that's more of a middling quarterback. Pay for it to know you're actually getting the difference maker at the position. And this is something I've talked about a lot, is that all these teams that come up to have to pay their quarterback, it just becomes automatic mode. It just hit the easy button and sign him mode. None of them really think through the process and really try to unpack whether or not it really makes sense to spend 1/5 of our cap on one player who's kind of mid because he happens to play the most important position in the sport. I don't think that math adds up. I don't think that it tracks. But that's where you can look at the Niners and you can see very clearly where they've made the mistake here. Maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe this is the line they want to trust on it, but I don't think it's the right way to go because it just means that the pain's going to hurt that much more when you finally do have to reset this thing. And they're already feeling it this year with the $80 million of dead money. I mean, this thing alone, eating that amount of dead money might prevent them in itself from getting the job done this year. And then it's now next year. And you haven't even gotten to the reset point yet. You're just bleeding a bit. Brandizer, Brando at the strip club trying to stream. Hot gal comes up. It's time for your lap dance, Mr. Kane. Good times. I mean, I got to support the local industries. You know what I mean? It's tough times right now. We're on the edge of a recession. You got to get out there and support these local owners. They're doing their best out there. These girls are doing their best. I'll go make it rain for a night. Says Trent's going to pull an Aaron Rodgers and retire with his new contract. I've been thinking that he's going to have a hamstring injury pop up about the third week of training camp, Seth. He's been doing all the OTA stuff. He's been, putting in, he's more present here this offseason than ever before, than he's been through his whole time here as a Niner. Like, yeah, I know what he's doing. He's laying the groundwork, Seth. That's what he's doing. He's laying that early retirement groundwork, that golden parachute groundwork. That's what Trent's doing. Catalyst, teams are afraid to pay their quarterbacks, I think, scared that they might get stuck in a quarterback purgatory when they're instead locking themselves up long-term to a quarterback who doesn't have it. Yeah, it's the great irony of it, right, Catalyst, is that you're trying to avoid the quarterback purgatory, but that you end up in a different type of purgatory that's, if anything, just as bad, if not worse. I mean, at least with having a bad quarterback, you can always pivot to the next. If you go take a Josh Rosen like the Cardinals, you can come back and take a Kyler Murray. And I don't love Kyler, but he's a much better player than Rosen was. Whereas if you pay that quarterback, like you say, now you're stuck. Niners, if Purdy goes out there and can't do nothing, Purdy goes out there and snaps his Tommy John again this offseason, Niners can't do anything after year two. They're stuck there. They're locked in there. You know? Everyone, 1 second here, folks. I'll be right back. Thank you for bearing with me here. He says, only because we're only a-holes to every other fan but ours. We love you, B. Much love back to you guys, too. That's for sure. Catalyst, it's a smaller yet stronger community here, and that's what matters. It's what I want to build. I really want to, as we go forward, whether we grow or not, get subs or not, it's cool to get that stuff. But really what I want on this, as much as being bigger and badder than ever on the Hawks Nest, I like the thought, and I'm more enraptured by the thought than ever, Catalyst, of having the stronger community. And that's what we really as more can be leaning with and who we are, what we are here. I think I'm more, as I go on with time and doing this channel, I just find myself more wanting that than getting the big, because it does seem like to get to the bigger side of it does come with some bigger problems with it. There's definitely some more issues when you get on that spot of it. Maximus Reldis, love this commitment. Go 12s. I love what I do, man. I got the best job in the world, and it makes it easy. It makes it easy. We got me in the house. What's up, me? Me dropping some bombs with a big old $50 donation.
Please clap.
Me, you're awesome, brother. Awesome as ever. Me been dropping these big old dono drops throughout this offseason in a major way, coming in with a big old $50 drop. Thank you for that, me. I really appreciate you for that, brother. You are very, very kind for that. He says, sup, chat? What's up, B? How you doing, man? Hope you're having a great summer. Hope my fellow 12s are doing well and enjoying this beautiful Thursday. Just wanted to stop by and show some love. Well, much love to do my heart. Give you the heart back here. Heart back to you too, buddy. Heart right back for you too. He says, I can't wait for the season to start. As always, go Hawks, go 12s. Well, go Hawks, go 12s, me. You are awesome. For the $50 drops, the $100 drops, a couple $100 drops here, there, everywhere. I can't even keep up with you dropping so much. Thank you for that, me. Helping this channel out majorly as you have throughout this offseason. I really, 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 from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. I'm having a great summer here. We've been rocking and rolling along throughout this offseason. Can you smell at me? It's the season coming close. I can smell the smell of a football. It's the smell of freshly cut grass. It's right there. It's right there. So we are almost there, man, but having a great summer. I hope you are as well. Much love out to you, man, and thank you for the $50 don't know drop. Very, very kind. You have been amazing throughout this season, off season, hearing the support and whatnot on that. You are the man today, man. Thank you for that, me. I really appreciate you, brother. Me in the house. Let's go. Grandizer Brando, did the 49ers panic with their swing and miss of drafting and developing Trey Lance? They maybe learned their lesson that lightning does not strike twice with a guy like Purdy. Yeah, I think that they knew very much that they got lucky with Purdy. You don't draft a guy as Mr. Irrelevant and be like, oh, we nailed it. We had him sightlined the whole way. Exactly what he was going to become. You kind of lucked into that one. And thank God you did, because if you didn't have Brock Purdy there, you're probably looking at both Lynch and Shanahan fired by this point. So this becomes a little bit of the situation that where a decision in signing Purdy becomes less about you recognizing your team and recognizing how you're driven and what makes you go and what you need and what you don't necessarily need. But great if you have, you don't have to have it. And that's where this comes down to a little bit more of now the commitment, loyalty, how it lands in the locker room. If you pivot off a guy like Brock, who's kind of saved your tuchus in that way. And I think that that's where they got driven to have to make this choice that went far beyond just coldly calculating, deciding whether or not it really was a smart decision, whether it really did add up, whether it really did track to do this at this time. That got left and thrown out the window in favor of these other things. And I think that's the pathway to bad organizational decisions. That in football, you've got to be in more of that cold, calculating manner of things because it's a sport that moves so fast. And if you get sentimental, it'll make you eat it for it. It'll make you pay the price for doing it. Well said, though, Grandizer. I tend to agree. HG, man. B must be craving pizza today. I'm always craving pizza. Niners are the strip club of the NFL. Oh. Catalyst says they think they can just plug in a quarterback every season and hope it works. Thomas, I could point to the Green Bay and their longevity. They traded Favre, then drafted Rodgers near Favre's end of his career, and then Love, etc. Yeah, that's a team that has a smart process in play, and that they are going to lean on that process, and a lot of times not work very hard not to deviate off of it. But the Packers have shown us the pathway to developing quarterbacks. And there's all this question about quarterbacking. Do I need to draft the guy high? Can I draft a second, third rounder and then give him a better supporting cast? Is it all about being on the rookie deal? There's all these questions that are floated out there about the quarterback position and how to deal with it. And meanwhile, you have the Packers who have Favre come in, not an immediate starter, first at the Falcons, first learns his way a little bit. Then when he's ready, he's inserted in the lineup. Boom, he goes, he takes off, he's flying. And then when you realize the end was winding down, you're getting a little bit tired of some of the diva-ness that's coming out in him. You have Rodgers you draft, you let him sit 3 years, then you play him. Same kind of thing you do now for Love. Love's not quite been able to elevate himself to the same place the Rodgers and Favre were at, but he's also been a success story, another success story for him. So, did they just happen to draft 3 quarterbacks that were just really talented, and it's just their ability to identify talent, draft it, and pick it? Or is it also part of the puzzle of that development process? Some of the reason why I say I'm so ardent on saying, and Matt Hasselbeck said this on 710 a couple of days ago talking to Brock and whatnot, and Salk, and saying, look, let him sit. Let him sit. Don't put Milroe out there, and I'm not talking about putting him out there for a couple snaps here and there where you have him run read option stuff in his rookie year. I'm talking about putting him out there as a starter. Let him sit. Give him 2 years. Let him have time to develop, because we've seen in other places in Green Bay alone, how much that could be so beneficial to giving a player that little bit of extra time at this quarterback position to learn all the things they need to learn before they're truly ready to go. Michael Austin, thank you for celebrating 6 months as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowl member. I appreciate you for that, Michael. Says, hey, B, why haven't we signed Clowney yet? Your thoughts? I think that had you not made the signing of a DeMarcus Lawrence, this would have made this very easy, and Clowney would have already been in the door and he would have already been at OTAs. The part that makes this hard as it stands right now, Michael, is that my gut instinct on this is the team is probably going to carry 4 edges this year. So to bring on Clowney, you have to offload one of your edges to do so. I don't think that the team probably is going to do that, but I do think that there's maybe a market opportunity to do that, because maybe you could potentially move a guy like a Hall or a Mafi that you might not be wanting as much to sign to a long-term deal, bring in a Clowney, and then be able to move them for another asset to help your team in a different way. So there may be a creative method to get around this, but I just think that if you sign Clowney, you're sitting on 5 edges and somebody's going to be sitting on the bench and somebody's going to be pissed, and you might even have 2 guys that are sitting on the bench pissed because they're not getting enough snaps at that point. So it's going to require some supplemental move from the glut of edges to free up to bring Clowney in, but I would love to see him brought in. He had the best year of his career in Mike McDonald's defense. He's a pure fit here. He is a better player, in my opinion, than what you have in Derek Hall. And maybe not quite where Mafi's turned himself into. Mafi might be a better pass rusher at this point, but he's at least as good a run defender as Mafi. But that's what's caused the issue here is I think when they signed DeMarcus Lawrence, they weren't as well aware, Michael, that Clowney was going to be out in the open market and available. And if they had known that, I don't know if they would have signed the DeMarcus Lawrence deal. Great question. Dogzilla, I may go to Italy here soon if my mother wants help through the flights. The pizzas in Naples are a real thing. Ooh, I've heard the food in Europe is something different, man. Especially the bread and stuff. Like they actually do their bread right there. But I think if I went to Italy, I'd be doing nothing, Dogzilla, but eating the whole time. I'm not full yet. Be like the guy in Meaning of Life with Monty Python, you know? Just gets all fat and then he eventually explodes in the restaurant. Something like that. Ricardo says, I wonder why Amari Cooper is still unsigned. Wouldn't Amari be better as an X than MVS? You're bringing MVS as much in for the speedy quotient that he brings to the X, Ricardo. Amari is more of your route running X in what he runs. And so with a Marquez, a lot of what he's going to be doing is running coverages off, you know, run deep, run the coverage off. Then we run underneath the coverage, what you run off. I don't know if that's as much of Amari's game at this point. I got to say too, Ricardo, in watching Amari Cooper with the Buffalo Bills last year after the trade, he looked like a player to me that was downshifting. I don't know if I saw a guy that's going full out anymore. Long career, a lot of injuries through the career, well paid, a lot of stops. Kind of felt a little tired at the end of the year to me as a player, a little dusty. And it's true, as Feed Me says, MVS did have a better year than Amari did last year. That's true. Working in the exact same offense that he's coming to here in Seattle. Lewis has been a minute. How you doing, Lou? Pumpkin and Xena rule. Go Hawks. Xena's been making her presence felt here on the streams here. It's been kind of cool. It's good to see you though, Lou. Thanks for being a member of the channel, man. Philly definitely has a great system, Jonas. Yeah. And that's a team that, you know, why have they been to 3 Super Bowls over the past 7 years? Why have they been able to have that success with 2 different quarterbacks, getting them there? Because they're doing the very same thing that the Niners were unwilling to do. That they are willing to pivot. They're willing to move off. They're not going to get sentimental and hold on to things for too long. They've had players like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham that have retired, but they moved those players to more rotational roles as they aged, and they supplemented in the talent around them. They didn't just lean on those guys to the bitter end to carry the day for them, like I think the Niners are kind of doing. But yeah, Jonas, you're right, 100%. Philly's got that kind of grade A system in place, great offensive line coach, but more than anything, a guy in Roseman who gets it, who understands it. When he gets into draft, he drafts for value, and he drafts for value very hard. He values certain positions over other positions. He's going to put his resources in the right places. They're going to move off of guys, or they got to move off of guys, and they're going to do it at the right time. VB Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Hot take. We don't take a future quarterback and we let Milroe sit. I could see that being the case, feed me. I think you're going to be too good this year to be in alignment to get any of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft. I don't think John particularly likes trading up in first rounds. He's never done it before. I think this does lead you down the road, especially with signing Drew Lock to the 2-year deal that you did, that you're just kind of trying to set up your quarterback position, getting in place, and get the rest of the team built up and be able to concentrate on that. I would agree. I don't think it's a hot take. I think that that's very much probably in general terms where this thing is flowing, where it's heading to. Catalyst question, has Hurts developed as a passer much since 2022? No. Hurts has a combination of factors that work perfectly within the offense and within the talent that he has there with Philadelphia. First off, he's got one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines and has had the best offensive lines since he's arrived in there. It's a big benefit. He's got the skill position players on the outside, has the running backs. But what his skill set is a guy who understands very precisely how and how not to use his legs, how to, for the most part, keep himself healthy and using those legs at a higher rate than most other quarterbacks would be using it. But he has that one also separator to him, being that I tend to have a quarterback that's really mobile that has some arm talent limitations. Okay? I'm going to squish everything tight. I'm taking away the flat throws. I'm going to make him have to push the ball down the field. The one place that's the separator in Jalen Hurts, and that is that, for instance, a big separator between him and Lamar Jackson, a big separator between him and Kyler Murray, is that he throws a wonderful 9-ball. So his deep throws, basically the go routes, he can really hit those and hit those at a very high rate, a high successful rate. With Kyler Murray and Lamar, and you watch Lamar in the playoffs especially, you see this over and over again, where teams just squish everything down, they take away his legs, they go one-on-one on the outside, and they say, look, we don't trust your receivers to beat our guys on the outside, and we don't trust you to accurately hit the 9 routes. Seahawks were even doing this in the Baltimore Raven game that they got spanked on. They got spanked on a couple of years ago, and you got spanked in that game for other plays that kind of dinged you up. You decided not to tackle that day, basically. But when you did force Lamar into the moments of having to throw those 9 routes, he couldn't accurately push the ball to the right spot. But with Hurts, he is very accurate at hitting those throws. So you squeeze everything up, you got the limitations, but not limitations on this one specific throw. You leave the one-on-one to go help out the run game. The one-on-one guy at A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, they can beat their guys one-on-one. This is what allows him to play the position at a relatively simplistic place, yet still be able to be very effective and yet still be able to go to Super Bowls. The supporting cast is there. It's perfectly built to what he does. And what is your counter to that? You go too high, you protect deep, you roll that coverage up, you're going lighter on the box. You go lighter on the box, you have less guys being able to bring pressure, more open gaps for him to run around back there and use his legs. So the only other one extra part I put on too is that he does a very good job of staying within himself. Hurts knows exactly what he is and what he isn't. And he does not extend past what he isn't. So he doesn't make that bad mistake. As much about him, it's about the bad mistake that he avoids as it is about the plays he makes. It's why that thing's kind of a well-oiled machine out there in Philadelphia right now. Yeah, Jonas, you got it right. Their system allows it to work, though. They've perfectly assembled that thing up to make it go how it goes. And by perfectly assembled being that there isn't just some straightforward counter that you would utilize to take that away from him. Lamar Jackson, my straightforward counter is I'm going to force him to throw 9 routes. I'm going to make his looks take him there. Same thing with Kyler Murray. I just mentioned they threw 77 fade balls last year. They only completed 8 of them. So you're going to force Kyler as much as you can to throw those fade balls, aren't you? You're going to like it every time you see him line up to try to throw one of those. But that's not the case with the Eagles. There's not the easy out there. The straightforward, here's how you shut him out. HAG, Zena was just being patient all these years, waiting for the right time, playing the long game, then strike by taking Pumpkin's spot. She is, man. She's taking over, I'll tell you what. Brian says Pumpkin will retake her throne before the regular season begins. We might have to take some bets on this one, Brian. Zena's gotten very comfortable here. She's got very, very comfortable. Who throws the go ball well? Hurts. Yeah, Hurts does, King Bomber. Brian says, anyone read any of the details on the Wilson trade that have come out in the lawsuit recently? Oh, the collusion lawsuit. I didn't get too much into that. I know it's becoming a little bit of a story that's bumping up, but I didn't get too much into it. It's a struggle for me on this one where we've got quarterbacks bringing cases about collusion because they're not getting guaranteed money. It's almost like, billionaires saying we're being, this one's for me one where I kind of shake my head at it a little bit. No. King Bomber, 8 out of 77 on fade routes is diabolical. Yeah. Well, it's where there's a problem. There's something rotten in Denmark, King, because you go, wait, you threw it more than anybody else in football, but you probably completed it at the least amount of rate as anybody else. Well, why are you throwing it then? Why are you doing it so much then? And I think the reason comes back to because teams know just how to play Kyler at this point. And just like you do with Lamar, you're going to force him into the throws you want him to throw. And I'd be doing the same. Phoebe says, I wish more teams would build like the Chiefs because even if they didn't have Mahomes, they would be appearing in playoff games and wins. They build their team so well. Yeah, they do. Smart drafters. They spend their money really well. But they know how to build up their team right too, man. That's another team that's a well-oiled machine in what they do. And you're right. It ain't just about Mahomes there. I mean, hell, last couple of years, it's been a little bit more of the defense kind of carrying that load, hasn't it? There's a lawsuit being presented out there. And again, I haven't gotten as much into the details of it just because it doesn't interest me as much on it. But it's a collusion case where essentially the NFL colluded because they were freaking out after the Deshaun Watson contract that all of these quarterbacks were going to get guaranteed money on their deals. And that freaked a bunch of owners out. And so some owners colluded together to say, we got to stop this. We can't do this. And because they're dumbasses, and you got dumbasses like the owner of the Cardinals put themselves on record doing this, saying this on record, like in an email. And so this could become a thing. And I don't really like it as much because, again, it's quarterbacks that are raising this. And it's like, you're the position raising it. Like, you guys aren't being paid twice that of everybody else. Like, you're the one saying we need to be making more guaranteed money. Maybe you'd like to think that they're doing this for the rest of the league somehow or another, but I can't help but think it's not really that. So it has to do with the fact that, Russell's people wanted a guaranteed contract after Deshaun's, and Kyler Murray's people wanted a guaranteed contract after Deshaun's. But then you have these owners that colluded to basically say, like, we can't give these contracts out. This is bad for the sport. We can't do this. This is bad. So it's, I guess, a lawsuit that's spinning out there somehow or another. King Bomber, Kyler, and Marvin Harrison are a terrible combination. Oh, it's an awful combo. Yeah. He needs the quick guy that can break off the secondary route. He can take advantage of his scrambling ability. That's not Marvin's game. Marvin's the pure route runner, man. Great route runner. But, it's got to be on time. It's got to be, you want to pair a Marvin Harrison Jr. with like an Aaron Rodgers in his prime to what Devontae Adams was. You want that kind of combination running there with this kind of player. Not the guy with the quarterback that needs more of the off-script stuff and can't throw a fade ball worth his life. Thomas says, man, I thought Wilson is majorly delusional about only reason why he went to the Giants. Problem was the Giants were the only team that wanted him. Yeah, well, we know with Russell, he can sometimes find the good side of things, even with it might not seeming to exist. Yeah. Catalyst says Marvin Harrison is a middle of the field demon. However, Kyler never throws over the middle of the field. Last time I checked, the last time he did that to Marvin Harrison Jr., he got intercepted by Ernest Jones. Yes. Accurate. Very accurate, Catalyst. And yeah, it's why it just didn't make any sense why they had Malik Neighbors sitting there. Like, Neighbors would have been great with Murray. He had worked off a lot of the secondary routes at LSU there with Jaden Daniels. Would have been a perfect pairing. But Cardinals got caught up in something else on that, I guess. King said, I don't think Jody was in that article because we didn't really have to pay a quarterback. No. We wouldn't have been in lineman to do this. It was those quarterback contracts that were being handed out just after Deshaun. And you had a couple of different owners that were freaking out. Part of why that contract's just so bad is it had so many ripple effects. Shadowbot07 says top 5 defense load. And let's go, Shadowbot. Let's go. I love it, man. HHG Russ's wife finally got to New York. It only took a couple pit stops. Eventually get there. Yeah, it was a hell of an interception catalyst by Ernest Jones too. And the thing with that interception is I think you start that play with Ernest Jones feigning a blitz and then dropping into coverage. And that's where Kyler post-snap can't process over the middle or see over the middle. So he has to kind of guess. And when you're guessing and throwing over the middle of the field, bad things happen. King Bomber, if only we were able to draft Jihad Campbell on top of Imawari and Zabel. That would have been a hell of a haul, man. Could you imagine that kind of haul? It's going to be interesting to see what goes on with Jihad and that injury situation he was dealing with. Because a lot of people were trying to paint it like it was going to affect him into the season. Others were saying he was going to be just perfectly fine by the start of the year. But tough part with that one would have been, too, you just didn't have a place for him on the field exactly. He might have been sitting there then, too, behind Tyrese and Ernest. Yeah, let's know, man. Russell and Malik Neighbors might be something to watch. Both their skill sets integrate well. Bingo. Yeah. Neighbors will be able to work off the off-script stuff, and that should pair together really nicely between those two guys. I do agree with you on that. And I don't know if he had that as much even with the Steelers or even with Denver. It's not really Cortland Sutton's game. Jerry Jeudy was a pure route runner when he was there. So Russell's been kind of missing it. I think it's one of the great places what Seattle did with him is to bring guys in that could do that. DK could do that stuff. Tyler Lockett absolutely could do that stuff. Doug Baldwin could do that stuff. You had receivers that were fit to that skill to be able to break it off, because those secondary routes and a quarterback break in the pocket, and I mean, that can become almost impossible to cover if you have the right talent to execute it, as we saw with Russ in the 2000 teens. King Bomber, do you think Jake still thinks his secondary is better than ours because of the better depth? Yes. But Jake's just all the way in on his team. And, you know, I do think that he's being a little homer. I think he's being majorly homerish, especially when it comes to his outlook on the cornerback room. But I also do believe that when it comes to Jake and his outlook of the team, he's earned the right to puff up his chest and say that he feels this and feels that. This is a team that's been to the playoffs the past couple of years when we have not. This has been a team that's been able to overcome an Aaron Donald and seemingly almost get stronger off the back of it. I mean, to lose Aaron Donald and Ernest Jones and get stronger on the back of it last year. So while I disagree with him, and while it is a little bit of kind of like you roll your eyes a bit on hearing some of his takes with some of this stuff, you get it right when you're on top of the hill and you got the job done to kind of, you know, like I said, push out your chest a little bit and feel yourself a little bit. But I don't think he's accurate on it either with that. Brian Meyer says, I think Akilio used to babysit Jake. He's got a lot of Witherspoon love. That is for sure, man. King Bomber Akilio, Shaq Griffin is just as good as Akilio Witherspoon. Well, I would lie to you if I said that I wasn't thinking about posting the following here when it came to your point on that, King Bomber. When I was thinking about posting this to Jake on the next time we do the roundtable, be like, well, we already have the cornerback room is the best in football, and then we got a guy, and I'm showing you the grades here for the cornerbacks last year in football. So to your point, Akilio Witherspoon, the 53rd highest graded cornerback in the sport at 65.6. And then if you just go down to 63, so you go from 53 to 63, you've got Shaquille Griffin at a 63.7 grade. So there's 10 spots different between them. Akilio Witherspoon, 65.6, Shaquille Griffin, 63.7. So I that's where I maybe go back to Jake and I'll go, so we got basically an equivalent to a Witherspoon on top of what we already had in our secondary. I don't think he'll buy it, but I think that it does kind of expose a little bit of the hole in his argument there, doesn't it? King said we need Devontae Adams to play an Allen Robinson type role. We certainly could. Hopefully a Torrey Horton can become that guy maybe. Jonas, we need a new NFL commissioner. It's almost about time, isn't it? We're almost there with that. Mr. Isaac is so crazy seeing Russ's demeanor at the beginning of his career versus now. Also, yes, Jake is obsessed with Akilio. It's kind of revolting, honestly. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, he's going to go with him to the bitter end on that one. That is for sure. And yeah, Russ has had a rough roll here, man. You know, Denver to Pittsburgh to New York. You've seen your star go from being a no-brainer, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer to now, you know, you're having a little bit of your career drawn into question by this run. But the good news for Russ on his side of it is that there's still an opportunity here. I know the Giants aren't a great team. I know that division is going to be a little bit tough for them to make any noise, but you do still have that opportunity here to reclaim the last end of your career, to write the final chapter in your career. And maybe he can find that one more brilliant point of light here. Last little bit of that last gasp. King, it's borderline embarrassing that we still haven't beat Matt Stafford as a Ram. It's been a little bit frustrating, yeah. Mr. Isaac, B, where does Job fall on those ratings? Oh, question. Job, not great. He's a 51 graded guy. So, if we're looking at 53 to 63 between the two guys we were talking about. Job is 107 on his rating. So quite a drop there. Part of the reason why I do believe too, King, that or not King, but Brian, part of the reason why I think Brian too, that really good chance Shaquille ends up taking the starting job once we get to camp. Thomas says, puff up his chest when it took a strength of schedule tiebreaker to win the division. I'm sorry, it's a lot of luck. Yes, they are talented, but both games Seattle looked a lot better. It was the mistakes of the first game. I think that's fair. I think they're primed to be overtaken here, Thomas. I do. I'm not saying I think they're definitely a juggernaut or anything. You do get where they have had some success, and you're going to lean into being positive when you do this anyway a little bit, and you'll lean in even more so if you get some success like that. So I get where he's coming from, but it's there is the homer side of it that's there. I mean, that's very true on this take. It just is. Jonas Bruss is probably going to ball this year, even though he's cringe about it. He just might. Interesting squad they got out there in New York. Yeah, Job was a little streaky catalyst. When he was good and he was on it, the Atlanta game, he was great in the Atlanta game. I mean, fantastic. And the Buffalo game was pretty good as well. Had that legit pick that he made on 3rd and 3, jumping the route. But you did have some bad moments too. Teams did tend to pick on him a little bit with Woolen and Witherspoon out there. They would attack him. They'd go after him. Yeah. Jonas says, I really wish we kept Trey Brown. I liked him when he was healthy. Just couldn't find his way on the field, man. I think even with Job having the year he did, there was times Job played over the top of him from Trey. And that ended up being just enough on that one to kind of show you that the team did not think highly of where Trey was. I think with Trey, he's got like 29-inch arms, Jonas. And the problem with him is not as much, I think, in coverage as it is just he really struggles as a tackler. He just can't wrap up sometimes. Mr. Isaac, I know Milrow's really raw, and I believe he should sit 2 years, but I'm very hopeful for his outlook. Maybe I'm just a homer, but I'm very amped for him. Hey, look, he's as talented as a quarterback as you were going to find in this draft, Mr. Isaac. And that alone is plenty of reason to be amped up on him. Plenty. I mean, it's inarguable. It's inarguable. You got the most talented quarterback in this draft. He's far from maybe reaching all of that upside of that talent that offers you, but it's there. It's real. It's true. It's not something that people are having to invent. So being hyped up on him, especially because you are in an opportunity, Mr. Isaac, to give him that 2 years. You're in the rare opportunity to actually give him the time to not be forced to make him go play and start because you got a general manager that's on the hot seat, or you have a head coach that's on the hot seat and they're trying to save their job. Instead, you can afford to stand patiently and let this thing develop and let him get to that upside. Let him have the time to go reach it. But be hyped up, man. I know I'm not super high on Milrow, but I will absolutely say that the talent is true. I would not try to gloss over that at all. Luce is funny. Shaq will be a backup and he's better than A. Witherspoon. King Bomber, apparently Trey Brown's playing in the slot for San Francisco. They'll have him on the outside when it's all said and done. He's not a slot guy, King. They may be trying to put him out there in the alignments, and it ain't going to be how it plays out when you get to the games. DeMondre Lenore will be their slot. But I know it's how they listed King, but with the listed stuff, I've seen through so many years and so many teams that the listed stuff in June shouldn't take much away from that. It's just listed names and places. It's not really anything that's based on anything. I can guarantee you with 100% certainty that Trey Brown will be playing less than 3% of his snaps next year out of the slot. He's a pure outside guy. Plus they have DeMondre Lenore there that plays inside outside, but it's really more of an inside guy. That's an 80% slot guy for them. Yeah, he ain't going to be able to handle slot. It's not, he'd get exposed. Y2K, thank you for 24 months, says a Hawks Nest member. Can I get a T. Williams breakdown, no EWR? Can I get a T. Williams breakdown NEWR? Y2K, you might have to actually kind of type that out into the chat. I don't know what Williams breakout NEWR means. I'm a couple hours in the stream, so the eyes definitely start to get a little bit cross-eyed as we get a little bit late in the action on this, but I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know what T. Williams breakdown maybe somebody New England wide receiver. Yeah, I got the New England wide receiver. Oh, make me earn it on this one. Okay, let me see here. Let's go through the Patriots roster and find out which receiver he's meaning here. Okay, so I think you meant, so you said T. Williams, but I think you meant K. Williams. Because there's not a T. Williams on their roster. So I'll answer the question like it was T. Williams, like it was K. Williams you meant, like Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams is an outside wide receiver. He's a little bit slight. There were some comparisons I would have put to him to like a Paul Richardson Y2K when he was coming out. I don't think he's quite as slight as Paul. I think he's a little more solid. I think he's a little bit better after the catch than Richardson was. Really sudden guy, good burst and good speed. Like he's a legit low 1.5 guy and then a legit 4.4 guy on the outside. Really good hands. He's got this weird kind of little technique where he's able to kind of tip, if the ball is really errantly thrown, he can kind of tip it back to himself. He's got just some really good ability to ball track and stay with it, very, very competitive at the catch point. I don't think that there was some super skill that he brought to play Y2K that was where you just go, well, he's got this part's a next level to his game. But he was a very complete wide receiver. He can run the full route tree. He could take the top off the defense with that 4.4 speed. Gave you just a good all-around plane of ability. He did. Everything was really, really strong in his game for the most part. Maybe just a little bit light is maybe the one little knock you have. Maybe you'd like him to be just a little bit longer. Would have been maybe the only little knock you could have had on him. But tremendously productive there with WSU. I think he's going to be a strong player in this league. I think people started by the end of the draft season, their Y2K, it started to get a little bit overhyped. And, it started to go kind of overboard where it's like, I think Phil Simms had him as like the first or his second best wide receiver in the whole class. That's where it went a little bit over the line for me on that one. But a solid guy. And he's going to probably have a long NFL career. Brian Myers, B, Shamar, John Charles info. There's not much there. He barely played last year. Doesn't have a lot of a track record of playing the sport. I didn't scout him coming out. So I don't have anything I can give you as far as my breakdown with him coming out with it. But there's just not a lot there, Brian, as far as to kind of break down. He had the one really impressive interception last year in coverage on a 9 route, got his head turned around and picked it off. But the tape was pretty lean on him. And probably really even the pathway to making the roster is going to be probably an uphill one for him, especially with the signing of Shaq now. Be my guess. Catalyst says Trey Brown was getting smoked by Justin Jefferson, not rewatching that game ever again. Horrible defensive back play. Yeah, that was a tough game to watch. Both the Green Bay and Minnesota one at the end of the year when you had something on the line was a little bit rough. King, just curious, did you want to draft a receiver on day 2 this past draft? Obviously, since we didn't, who were your targets for day 3? Torrey Horton, Jalen Royals, Alec Ionamore were my targets. Horton was definitely one of those guys. Royals, I liked Royals. He's another guy a little bit like Kyle Williams, where I felt like King, he was a guy that just started getting elevated higher and higher and higher and higher. I liked Alec Ionamore too. I was not looking at us drafting a receiver in day 2. I would have much preferred going a route like, for instance, maybe addressing the offensive line a little bit more heartily in that point rather than going and getting guys, especially knowing that we could go down the line and get a Torrey Horton in the 5th round. You go get a Ricky White in the 7th round. I'm okay taking that round. I think it came down to, for me, King, I did buy into the narrative that was out there that this was not the strongest of wide receiver classes. So taking a guy early in a kind of weak wide receiver class doesn't really add up to me. Is not really smart money spent, in my opinion. And I think you were more talking yourself into some of these wide receivers this year by the nature of the fact the talent was so lean. And that would have me going to other positions that were just stronger in this draft on especially day 2. But day 3, it's kind of like you could take a receiver anywhere into day 3 and I wouldn't have had a problem there. Anywhere. I would have been okay with that. But day 1, day 2, they stay in other positions at that point. Stevie Johnson for Kyle Williams. I like that comparison, Jonah. That's probably pretty close on that one. And Stevie Johnson had a hell of a career. Femi says, you think Milroe gives more hope with the VR? I don't have a long track record of a lot of quarterbacks using VR and seeing tangible results. We have Jaden Daniels who's done it, and I haven't heard of a lot of other guys that I know that we've grown their game hugely forward by utilizing it. I think it should work. I think it should help. I think, logically speaking, it should be something that allows him to improve that element of his game. But it's also a very new technology, and they're still learning how to adapt it properly. And if I don't have a track record, I just don't kind of know as much on that one. Catalyst, also, what the hell was Julian Love doing on the second touchdown, not bracketing JJ after Tariq Woolen gave up? I don't know. He was a little bit late over onto that side of it. And he, I think, is the single high safety there. That is the hard part of it when you're the single high safety, is you have to have both sides of the field that you have to tend to cover. I can't remember if we had cover 2 or not on that. I want to say it was like a cover 3 kind of look. And yeah, Woolen kind of gave up on the play. Another one of those plays from Woolen last year where you're just like, did you just like check out halfway into this play? Did you just kind of like, did your brain go somewhere else? King says, yeah, I had the same idea. Didn't want to go after a receiver on day 2. I think it's smart to kind of identify that, King, when you come into the draft. I think this is why it is very important to understand where the positions of strength lie in a draft and where the weaknesses lie in a draft. Because Seattle comes to that draft, you lose Tyler Lockett, you lose DK Metcalf. Okay, you brought Cooper Kupp in and Marquez, but there's still there's a need there for receiver. So then that need ends up driving you to want to go get the receiver, but you're getting the receiver in the weaker draft. And now we get back to the real basics here on the draft. And where we come back to that, my axiom, my mantra that I like to utilize all times when it comes to the draft, which is that you want to lean into value wherever possible. And the second that you start leaving value for need is where you start to go wrong in a draft. And so last year, going early on for wide receiver, reaching for that need into like day 2, when the strength was in other places, that is the epitome of reaching for need. That is the epitome of heading down the road to failing in a draft, in my opinion. And so I think you got to be very careful as you come into drafts for this, because I think that this is a little bit of a gopher hole that teams can tend to step in when they don't mean to. And you just don't want to be, if it's a weak year for a particular positional group, kind of punt, go make the trade for that position then. Go find another way to get that on board at that point. Don't talk yourself into guys. HHG, watch the VR stuff, just be mad. Catalyst is also just a rough game for the secondary. Yeah, it was a tough game, the secondary. Yeah, Minnesota won, yeah. And Love was great last year. So, it's kind of a rarity by him. He tends to be in the right position, the right place. Gallo says, I believe we rotated to a 2 high post snap, but he still wasn't there in time. But it makes it even worse. If he's not in a cover 3 look, cover 1 look, and he's actually in cover 2, and he only got half the field, that makes it even worse if that was the case. I haven't had a chance to rewatch the play necessarily. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go and look at the film on to be sure. But I don't know what he's thinking. If he's in cover 2 there and he doesn't take it over the top, that's his direct responsibility, being Love. Kind of a strange play. Yeah, you re-sign Cooper Kupp for that reason too, King. You're right. You take that risk even a little bit at that point because of the fact that he's got the injury thing, but he gives us much more certainty than we would have in this draft. We don't have to wait for him to develop. What he gives us is what he's going to give us. We rotate him in through with the Marquez Valdez handling and the JSN, and you make the best of the situation at that point. I think if there had been more talented receivers in this draft, John would have been more impelled to probably go take one a little bit more early on. I think if Tetaroa McMillan had landed to you, where you're picking in the first round, that there's a good chance they would have taken McMillan. But it just didn't shake out that way, and you rolled with the punches smartly for that reason. Mr. Isaac, if you would take back one single trade the Seahawks have ever made in franchise history, what would you take back and why? So the Jamal Adams one is the one that people are mentioning in the chat below you, Mr. Isaac, and that certainly is one that your mind goes to initially on that. And I'm not going to say it's the Jamal Adams trade for this reason. If you don't draft Jamal Adams and you go a different direction with your ball club with those picks and you spend your money in other areas, you're going to be an improved team. You are going to have more wins in Carroll's time there at the end. I don't think you're a Super Bowl contender. I think that the limitations that existed within Carroll's schematics superseded the talent that you had on the team at the time, that he was so hard-headed in his approach at that time that even if you added on those couple of extra talents that you would have had in the first round, that it would have made a bit of a difference, but not the ultimate difference to getting you championships. Whereas we have a deal in Percy Harvin where think about that deal. Think about if you held on to Max Unger. Think about if you had held on to the first and third round pick that Percy Harvin costed. Think about if you had been able to keep the money that you gave to him instantaneously after the trade. Is that enough to cement a dynastic run at that point? Is that enough to make you just a little bit better in that not New England Patriot game, but just is that better to allow you to get that last extra breath there a little bit? I think maybe potentially so. I mean, and it does affect the Patriot game because you have Unger in that game, because you maybe have a better cornerback out there to deal with your injuries that you're dealing with in the secondary at that time. So I think that there's a real chance where you don't make the Percy Harvin trade and you get another Super Bowl. I don't think that if you don't make the Jamal Adams trade that there's any real avenue for you to go get another Super Bowl while Carroll was here at the end of his time, because the detriments and the things holding Carroll back were so major that it was not going to be superseded by just having a plethora of talent at every turn. Jonas? All right. Yeah, the Unger one was pretty bad. Jimmy Graham, the other one, yeah. I guess I'm confusing the trades. Goodness gracious. I'm getting a little late in the stream here. Okay, so yeah, I still would do the Percy one. The Unger one wasn't a part of that. But I would have done the Percy one because I think that would have had a potential of getting you that second Super Bowl and maybe even a third Super Bowl with the extra talent you would have added to the team. Because remember with Percy, you cut him after the Super Bowl season. So you got almost nothing from the Harvin trade. Almost nothing. Mr. Isaac, Jamal Adams seems obvious, but it was 2 firsts, but I agree we would have not have been won a chip even without the trade. That's kind of my driving motivational force. It's the 1-2, and you can certainly talk me into Jamal Adams being the one that would have saved us better, but I get enamored by the thought of, could you have won 3 Super Bowls if you hadn't made the Harvin trade? Because you have enough talent then for the Patriots one, it's not quite as close, and then you're able to keep the good times a-going, the good times a-flowing. I just wonder on that. I just wonder. All right, well, we almost went 3 hours here today. We're going to go ahead and put a button up on the show right now at this point in time and call it a bit of a day, if that's okay with you guys. If you could do me a favor as well, hit that like button today. Helps out the channel, helps me grow, helps me show. It's all that good stuff here on YouTube. And you know what? I really, 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 really do appreciate it. We will be back here tomorrow. We're going to hit you guys up. We're going to be looking at what a championship run would look like for your Seattle Seahawks this year. I know the odds are small. I know Vegas has us at 7.5 wins for the year. I know a lot of people are counting us out from a national perspective standpoint coming into this season. There are people even within our own division in the roundtable think we'll be in last place, even behind the Cardinals. I understand all this. I don't care. I'm used to teams nationally overlooking us. That's no new thing. All comes down to, do you have the talent? Do you have the coaching? Do you have the money you can spend? Can you go make a major trade to put you up over the top at some point or another? The answer is yes across the board on all of this. So tomorrow, you're going to want to tune in for this. I'm going to make the grand case. I'm going to lay out for you guys what it would take for your Seattle Seahawks to go on a championship run in 2025. That's what we're going to be unpacking tomorrow. I'm going to chart it out. I'm going to be very detailed centric. I'm going to give you every little individual point of how I see it, of how it's got to come together. Yeah, a lot of good things have to happen at once, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. And it doesn't mean that there's not a real potentiality of this occurring this upcoming season. So we will be back there on that one tomorrow, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Friday. I thank you guys for the great discussion and for all of the donations, all the folks that have been members of the channel here for 2, 3, 4 years as you guys have been. I really do appreciate all of that awesome support. One quick note, I've been mentioning it recently. We've got the meetup that's going to be going on. We've got tickets that are just about to run out here. So we're going to be doing the meetup down in LA, the Rams, the 49ers. We're going to be about early October. There's a link down in the description section of this video. You can click on that link and you can get the tickets. So $300 gets you tickets to the game. We're going to be doing a meetup at the bar the prior night of. We're going to be doing a tailgate session. We've had a really great turnout on this, but tickets are starting to go fast. So if you want to join us down there and be a part of that, do please click that link down in the description section, as they'll be running out pretty quick, pretty fast. We are going to move on to one more show tomorrow, and then I will be probably taking a little bit of a break here outside of getting some breaking Seahawks news coming down the pike here in late June, early July. I got some shorts I'm going to be posting to the channel, so we'll keep the action going on the channel. But we might be doing a little bit of a break there after tomorrow. All that much more reason you guys want to be tuning in, as we got a real fun show tomorrow lined up, and hopefully get you guys hyped up, get you guys dreaming big. I want you dreaming big here, not dreaming small. Yeah, we try to stay pretty realistic here at the Hawks Nest, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for all of us to dream big, to daydream away here in this offseason. Back here in less than 24 hours. Thank you guys for all the great chat. Catalyst, King Bomber, appreciate you guys. Sean S., thank you so much, man. King Bomber in hindsight, would you have traded the 5th overall pick, 37-52, for the 1st overall pick? No. But that's partly, King Bomber, just because I'm a big believer in it's not just all about the quarterback, man. It's very important. Got to go get your guy. But I think that you're better suited to put the conditions in place for success for that quarterback rather than just jumping on him first thing. And it seems like a lot of people want to just sort of jump on the quarterback first thing and then figure everything else out down the line. I think that's what leads to the failure rate, the high failure rate of all these quarterbacks that are drafted. So I wouldn't have wanted to go that route. You didn't have the offensive line in place and was ready to go yet. You didn't have the offensive scheme that was in place and ready to go yet. To me, the timing just wasn't right on that side of it. Just kind of where I stand on it, though. That's just my personal outlook. That's definitely not necessarily the rule of thumb as it generally rotates on that one. All right, we'll be back in less than 24 hours, and I'm going to make my case to you for a Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl run in 2025. So please do tune into that. But beyond all that, dream big, dream large for this upcoming season. The talent is in-house. Is it ready? That is the question, not whether or not do you have it. You have the head coach in place, the right guy to guide this ship forward. Is it all going to come together, though, this upcoming season? That is the question. A lot has to hit. A lot has to come to life in a lot of ways, but we've seen that signs of life already prior. We've seen the beginnings of this. We've seen its electricity starting to spark. So will it come fully forward this year? We shall see, but I'm going to make the case tomorrow. So do tune in and do have a lot of high hopes for this upcoming season for your Seattle Seahawks. Don't pay attention to Vegas. Pay attention to me. And dream big, my Seattle Seahawks fans, because this just might be one hell of a wonderful season. But beyond all that, don't ever, ever forget. Go Hawks.